Good evening. Welcome to the April 21st, 2022 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is a live meeting, thankfully, this evening. Nice to see you all in person. Just a few things before we get started. Well, actually, why don't we, I'll ask you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance first. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Just a few things before we get started. First thing is, if you have, any of you have cell phones on you, if you can do us a favor and silence them or turn them off because they interfere with our recording equipment, and we're going to do the same. Secondly, if you are inclined to speak to one another while you're waiting for the application that you're here for to be heard, if you can do us a favor and go in the hallway to speak and not speak in the auditorium, because that also interferes with our recording equipment. And also, I normally read the emergency exit procedures, but I don't have them.
Run like that.
Don't use the elevator.
You have them?
Go for the exits.
Okay. This is just in case of an emergency, which hopefully will never happen. Okay. All right. In case of emergency evacuation, please exit through the rear doors of this room to one of the downstairs, one of the staircases across the hall, and continue downstairs and out through the main entrance. Please do not attempt to use the elevators during an emergency evacuation. In case of a medical emergency, the automated external defibrillator and first aid kit are both located in the hallway on this floor opposite the elevator, and restrooms are located across the hall. We will be starting this meeting with the public hearings. A reminder that applicants, agents, and members of the public speaking, other than attorneys, will be sworn in, will state their address for the record, and will offer their testimony as it relates to the application before the board. Unless otherwise stated at the end of each hearing, all of these applications will remain open for written comments for all purposes until May 6, 2022. Those comments can be addressed to the board secretary, Candace, who's right there, and sent via email, mail, and/or dropped off at Town Hall. Also, please note that the next few meetings will be returning to video conferencing. That is the May 5th, May 19th, and June 2nd zoning board meetings. So continue to check the town's website and touch base with the board secretary, Candace, for updated information. And he's not here yet, but we are, when he gets here, I'm going to mention that Cornelius Kelly, who's been an excellent board member, is leaving us. So this is actually his last meeting tonight. But I'll say more about that when he gets here. Okay, and with that, we'll get started with the agenda.
Okay.
Adjournments.
There are some adjournments tonight. Item 6 on the agenda, which is 110 Gaia LLC, 110 Gaia Road in Bridgehampton. We re-advertise that for our May 19th meeting.
Okay, no vote because it's a re-ad.
Okay, item 8 on the agenda, which is 9-11 Flanders Road LLC. It's 911 Flanders Road in Riverside, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-138-2-31 and 32. It's going to be adjourned, move to adjourn it to our May 19th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We do have a secret resolution on it, but the application is going to be continued at our May 19th meeting.
Okay, and then on the decision calendar, I'm going to move that we extend the written submission period to 5/4 with a determination on 5/19 for Atlantic Golf Club.
We got to reopen first, so first that would be a motion to reopen.
Sure.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, reopened.
Okay, we're going to extend the written submission period for Atlantic Golf Club to our 5-4 meeting with a determination on 5/19.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay, then we have Paul McCormick, Carlton Gibson, and Kaya Mark, and Daniel Bella. I'm going to move to put those for determination on our next meeting, which is 5/5.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Now I'll move to open up Adios Holdings LLC.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Reopened.
Okay, and then I'm going to move that we extend the written submission period to May 9th with a determination on 6/2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, that's it, that's what I got.
Okay. We're doing the minor first and then the secret resolution?
Yeah.
Yeah. Item 1 on the agenda is Kid Construction Company, Inc., 630 Lumber Lane in Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-51-1-10. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations for a principal front yard setback of 60.5 feet, where 80 feet is required for a proposed two-story residence on a non-conforming lot, and any other relief necessary.
The board has jurisdiction.
So this is a minor, so there's no public hearing on this application. There was a note from the building department about the single and separate search, but I'm presuming
Yep.
that we will be getting or have gotten what we need in order to have that be complete.
I reviewed the single and separate determination, and it's fine. But we do have to keep the written record period for this open, and we have to adjourn, we have to put it on for decision at the next meeting because we had to make some referrals, and we haven't heard back from them.
Okay, so Helen, it is yours.
Okay, are we keeping it open till, we're gonna have a hearing on it on February?
Nope, no hearing. You can just close it
Okay.
with, written subs.
Okay, and with the decision on May 5th?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, so next, we're going out of order a little bit because we wanted to do the secret resolution. This is the application of 911 Flanders Road LLC. We don't need to read anything, do we?
No,
I
no,
don't
we
think
don't.
so. Okay, all right. So I, so I have a
I
resolution.
already read it once.
You did. Okay, so I have a resolution. All right. This is a secret resolution in connection with the application of 911 Flanders Road LLC. Whereas the Zoning Board of Appeals has received a submittal on behalf of 911 Flanders Road LLC for property located at 9 and 11 Flanders Road, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-138-231 and 32. And whereas the submittal has been accompanied by 1, an application for variances and an interpretation in connection with the addition of convenience store where a gasoline station is also proposed, and two, an environmental assessment form, and 3, other correspondence. And whereas, after review of the submittals, the Zoning Board of Appeals found that this project is an unlisted action under the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, and coordinated review with the following involved agencies: the Southampton Town Planning Board, the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, the Long Island Central Pine Barrens Joint Planning and Policy Commission, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the New York State Department of Transportation, and the Suffolk County Department of Public Works, each of which was notified of such application by letter dated March 10th, 2022. And whereas the Southampton Town Planning Board has indicated that they would like to assume lead agency status in connection with the secret review of this project, now therefore be it resolved that the Southampton Town ZBA hereby agrees that the Southampton Town Planning Board should assume lead agency status with regards to the application of 911 Flanders Road LLC pursuant to 6 New York CRR Section 617.6B. And be it further resolved that this board directs that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Southampton Town Planning Board, Suffolk County Department of Health Services, the Pine Barrens Commission, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, New York State Department of Transportation, and Suffolk County Department of Public Works.
Second.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Okay. Item 2 on the agenda under new applications is the Colonel's Way LLC, 55 Fish Cove Road in North Sea, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-60-3-14.2. Applicant requests relief from town code for a proposed one-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot. 1, 330-84D, pyramid height for a proposed encroachment of 38.4 cubic feet on the east side of the property. And 2, 330-94, schedule of off-street parking space requirements for residential uses, for 0 parking spaces where a minimum of 2 spaces are required, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction, just wait one
Evening.
sec. Just wait 1 second. Wait
Sure.
1 second. Bob?
Yeah.
So these are the originals, and you're gonna keep everything that's in
Everything I
there?
have right here.
There, all of
No,
that stays
in
in
your-
there.
in your
Those are all
envelope.
those
Yeah.
are all the originals.
Okay.
So you're gonna put that with them too.
Yep,
And then any more originals, you'll always put the original back in.
right, and then you'll have copies of everything.
The original in there, keep one, so.
Yep.
Okay, I got one of the office.
Okay, sorry, Susanna.
That's okay. I have some photographs. if
Sure.
you wanna scan them.
Okay.
So then I'll give you the original lease, Bob, and you'll put the originals in there, and then you keep a copy for yourself.
Okay.
Thank you. So give that to Bob for the original. Give that to Bob for the original. And then for the
All right,
original,
I'll just have to swear you in, Susanna, if you can just state your name and address.
Susanna Herman and Consultants, 1319 OC Road, Southampton.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And also, would you like to get sworn in, sir?
Sure.
Okay, you can state your name and address.
John Betts, 65 Old Fish Cove Road.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
I'm sorry, Adam, I didn't get his last name. Your last name?
Betts, B-E-T-T-S.
Your first name is John? John? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this property is located at
Could you
55.
speak up a little bit?
Yes, ma'am. This property is located at 55 Fish Cove Road. It's in the R40 zoning district, and there's 22,991 square feet, so it's an undersized lot. It also borders on wetlands, and it contains very steep slopes. So it's a very constrained and very environmentally sensitive property. There's an existing cottage at the site that's 1 story. It's approximately 821 square feet of living space. And we're proposing to replace it with a new 1-story cottage, which will be approximately 831 square feet. So an increase of 10 square feet. It will still be only 1 story. The total height of the structure is less than 18 feet. It's 17 feet, 8.5 inches. The existing structure is 2.7 feet from the side property line and 3.7 feet from the street. The proposed house is going to be 6.8 feet from the street and 26.1 feet from the side property line. So what we're doing, the cottage is about 100 years old, almost. It was built in 1927 by the same family that currently owns the property now. It's been in the same family ever since. And so they really want to maintain the cottage character. Mr. Betts lives across the street at 65 Fish Cove Road. So the intention is to build a new cottage of approximately the same size, but it's going to be moved over right next to where the existing one is. So the 2 variances that we request, it's a pyramid variance for 38.4 square feet, and that's off of the street side. You should have a pyramid sketch by David Sherwood.
Yep, I think you meant cubic feet.
Cubic feet,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
that's good.
Did I say square feet?
You did.
Yeah, 38.4 cubic feet of pyramid relief is requested. The existing cottage has 235 existing cubic feet of nonconformity. So we're decreasing the amount of nonconformity with respect to the pyramid variance. We're also increasing conformity with respect to side yard and the street setback, which is actually the rear yard. So both of those are increasing. The nonconformity is decreasing all around there. We've spent a lot of time in front of the Conservation Board because it's a very sensitive site. We met with Marty Shea at the site, and moving the house over to the spot where we're going to be proposing it, just to the south of where the existing house is, was actually his idea. It's slightly flatter in that location, and we're able to better increase the wetland setbacks and have a more stable, flat area to construct the house. We're only taking down one tree as part of the project. There is a tree preservation and revegetation plan that was adopted by the Conservation Board with native plantings. So if you look at the aerial photograph, I don't know. Let's send.
Boathouse is going?
Yes, the boathouse is to be removed, there's a shed to be removed, there's 2 staircases down to the water, one of those is to be eliminated. So overall, we're decreasing the amount of coverage and structures on the property. So if you look at the aerial photograph, this little rectangle here, and I'll pass this around, is the roof of this structure. It's covered with moss in the photo, so it looks green. And pretty much the whole rest of the lot is wooded with mature trees. Those are all to remain with one exception, which is right where we want to put the house, or where we decided the best possible location for this house was.
And you didn't really have many options in terms of the house?
Oh, no.
No, no.
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 We did look at reconstructing it in exactly the same location where it is, but it's being sort of held up by trees. And the fear was if we were to put in a new foundation, those mature trees that are surrounding it, like literally they're in the foundation, that we could probably hand remove that foundation without hurting those trees. But if you were going to put in a new, solid, modern foundation that goes down below the frost line, you were going to kill those trees. So at the site with Mrs. Betts and Marty Shea, we walked the site for hours and looked at trees, and this is the location that we decided.
Can I say something, or do you
Absolutely.
go, do we take
I
turns?
was gonna just add, the other variance that we
Yeah.
need is, also at Marty Shea's suggestion, we are not proposing any parking on this property. Doing so would cause us to have to level, grade, and take down more trees and have a larger area of disturbance. The property itself is actually at a lower elevation than the road. There's a little retaining wall along the edge of Fish Cove, and you'd have to actually step down to that. You couldn't really drive a car into that without a huge regrading project. So we are proposing to have 2 parking spaces across the street. They've always parked across the street. They've always owned, the 2 lots have always been in the same family since over 100 years.
Right, which is fine as long as they stay in the same ownership.
Yes.
So we're prepared and willing to do an easement document
Yeah,
for the proposed parking across the street.
yeah, and this is just in case.
Sure.
At some point, one of the lots ends up
Sure.
getting transferred,
Right.
which, who knows, but.
Right.
That's not the
Otherwise,
intention.
they would be back here
Yeah.
asking for a variance to
Yep.
create parking and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Or come in by seaplane.
Yep.
Well, I just want, first of all, I wanted to acknowledge the Conservation Board, Marty Shea particularly, because what Susanna just said about solution-minded collaboration, working together. I'm a bit of a tree hugger. The family's been in the property, the property's been in the family for over 100 years. And my commitment to my family, and my mother, when she passed, was to restore the homes to the way they were in the 40s and 50s. And so keeping the cottage small, moving it off the bluff, actually is environmentally better for the whole area in terms of, rather than having it sit there on the edge. And I smile about the parking because, so the cottage was built in 27. The family's been parking across the street forever, because at one time we actually owned the road before the town took over the road at some point, yeah.
Yeah, in 1998, the town took over the road.
Okay.
which is what made it into two separate properties.
And are you having to do anything with septic for this?
Yes, the proposed septic is also across the street on the larger lot. And I would point out, this property across the street is 18 acres plus, most of it undeveloped. So there's plenty of parking, plenty of space for parking for the existing houses over there as well as this existing cottage.
Okay.
And the septic will be right next to the parking area across the street. So that allows us to put the septic farther away from the water and also prevent, a modern system on this sloping property would require us tripling the amount of area of disturbance in order to put in retaining walls and regrade and have a nice flat spot for the septic. So we're able to avoid all of that clearing by also putting the septic across the street. So we'll be doing an easement for that as well.
Okay. All right. I'm glad to see that so much effort has been put into this very environmentally sensitive parcel. So, it took a fair amount of work for you to get here. The relief itself, the pyramid relief is minimal. And as far as the parking goes, as far as I'm concerned, it's a benefit to this lot to put it on the adjacent lot. So I don't have a problem with it, but,
I don't have a problem with it.
yeah, want to ask if there are any
No,
other questions,
I think you've
comments?
done a really creative job in coming up with a solution, really good.
Credit to the board and Susanna and team, really,
And
five
Marty
years,
Shea.
And Marty, yeah.
and it was well done, I think. Yes.
I also spoke with, there's only one impacted neighbor because they're their own neighbor across the street, and the town owns the adjacent property that we're pulling away from here. I spoke with the neighbor who owns the other adjacent property, and they sent me an email in favor of the project.
Okay.
So,
Good.
and John's spoken to a lot of the
Yeah,
other
it was
neighbors in the
We've
neighborhood.
got a lot, we sent a brochure around to about 60 homes, and all favorable. We've got a neighbor in the back of the room there, Barry's there, and very positive. And it's a very tight-knit part of North Sea, and,
Sorry, you own the lot across the street we're speaking of also?
yeah.
So then obviously the easement is no problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
No, we're excited about this.
So we did get a comment from the building department. I'm not sure if you saw it, Susanna. This is from Marjorie Riley, building inspector. Although the property is located in FEMA AE6, it has been determined that the building department by the building department that elevations and height shall be taken from the average natural grade elevations NAV D88. The reason for this decision is based on the fact that the grade of the property is higher than BFE +2. So I just wanted to put that in the record.
Yes, I met with Marjorie a few times about that. It's really odd because it's in an AE6 flood zone, however, the grade is 18. So we're required to be at least elevation 8 by FEMA, but that's 10 feet below ground. So we're proposing basement even, so it works.
Okay, okay, very good. Any other questions, members of the board? Katie, Anthony?
Do we have anything from the Conservation Board? Like, do you have your permit, or where are you?
We have a resolution of conditional approval, and we have a stamped approved plan. The only condition that we are not meeting, the reason they haven't issued the actual permit, we didn't file the covenant for the buffer. The only thing holding it up is they want to review the easement documents that we're going to put together for. And I wanted to wait until we had feedback from this board and from the town before submitting the easement documents, just to make
Do
sure.
we have a copy of that resolution?
The resolution of approval, it should have been with the application, was it not?
I didn't see it.
I can hand it to you if you give me a second.
So in that resolution, it just says that the easement will be required by the Conservation Board?
It says that they want to review and approve the easement documents that we provide for the parking and septic.
Yeah.
I don't think
All right,
it
you
was
can
in
just
there.
submit it, Susanna. You guys have it?
I'll email it to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, we
it
just,
was
the
not
written submission is
Okay.
fine.
So,
Okay.
that's it.
Any other questions, members of the board? Is there anyone from the public who's waiting to be heard this evening in connection with the application of the Colonials Way LLC? This is for property located at 55 Fish Cove Road in North Sea. If not, Bob, it is yours.
Okay, move to close with Written submissions by 5/6
Believe so?
and decision by 5/19.
Second.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
I,
Chair votes aye. Thank you so much for being here.
very much.
Have a good rest of your night.
Enjoy.
Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item 3. M.M. Maria Mendelson Realty LLC,
Yep.
2538 Noyak Road, Noyak,
can move the chairs.
Suffolk County Tax Map 900-11-1-18.9. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-11, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations for a principal front rear yard setback of 51.3 feet where 100 feet is required for a proposed two-story dwelling and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. Pass that to Mike.
Mike.
Thank you.
Carl, whenever you're ready.
Oh, I was waiting on you. Good evening, nice to see you all in person. Carl Benacasa for the applicant, 860 Montauk Highway, Watermill, New York, 11976. As noted, we're requesting relief at 2583 Noyak Road, located just next to Noyak Golf Course, about a quarter mile down from Noyak Road's intersection with Wildwood Road. This lot borders three different types of land. One, there's a vacant parcel to the south, the owner of which has issued a letter of support for this application. That owner is the one most affected by the relief requested. There is a vacant lot to the west. We border its flagpole, not the principal portion of the lot. Noyak Golf Course is the neighbor to the east, and Noyak Road is directly borders the property to the north. Though this lot is conforming in size, it's in the R80 zoning district, practically speaking, it is a burdened lot. It's burdened in the fact that it is relatively shallow in its setback from Noyak Road, and as a result of that, the applicant is seeking to build the home a further distance from the, closer to the rear yard setback than is permitted under the R80 zoning district. Specifically, we are asking for a setback, a relief of 48.7 feet, when a 100-foot rear yard setback is required. Again, the lot is, the home is being constructed towards the back of the lot as it borders directly with Noyak Road. As you know, it's an incredibly busy road. Aesthetically, it creates a lot of noise, so naturally speaking, you would want the home setback. But more important, this parcel is currently owned by the end user, who has a young family with a small child, and there is a safety concern having the home too close to Noyak Road. In fact, this home sits on a part of Noyak Road that's about 750 feet down from what used to be called Dead Man's Curve. So there is significant safety issues, and that's why one of the principal reasons we are asking for the relief requested herein. This relief is not unique to this area. In this general neighborhood within the R80 zoning, the majority of the homes do not sit within 100 feet or beyond 100 feet of the setback. By my count, and I did do a neighborhood analysis, which I will circulate with the board, there's about 35 homes of about 50 in the neighborhood that do not benefit, that do not comply with the zoning setback. Some by virtue of pre-existing nonconformities, some by virtue of subdivision zoning, and some by virtue of variances. And I'll read some of those variances for you now. This is variance 2420, which was issued by this board in 1987. It's about 2/10 of a mile from the subject lot, and again, within the same R80 zoning district. This was for a request for front yard relief. It granted a front yard from 50 feet and a rear yard, it also did have a rear yard from the 100 feet to 48 feet. So actually more relief than we're requesting today. Again, that was a 1987 decision within 0.2 of a mile of this home, 2420 Noyak Road, decision number 7924. In 1997, this board granted a front yard setback from 80 feet, again, in the same zoning district, a lot within the same area, within a half a mile of the subject lot, from 80 feet to 39.7 feet to construct an addition to a home. So again, although it's asking for front yard relief, it is more than 50% relief that's being requested, which is less relief than we are requesting today. That decision, again, was issued January 2nd, 1997, decision number 9918 by this board. And finally, decision number 6697, granted June 17th, 1983 by this board, granted a front yard to 54 feet when 80 is required for a tennis court, with the recommendation that the cutting of trees therefore and the disturbing of ground cover be required. So again, these are you see variances granted in the amount of 30 feet, 40 feet, 60 feet of relief from side yards in this area. A lot of that has to do with the nature of the lots in this area. A lot of that has to do with the nature of the location of these lots relative to Noyak Road. If you look, and I do have a direct area map which I can pass around, an aerial.
Kim?
You give that to Katie, because I just want to make sure she's...
There's enough for Katie.
That's enough for Katie, okay. All right.
Just let me grab one.
Normally goes the other way.
Carl?
Start with me.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Stamp it.
I'd like to end
You want to stamp for it?
Me too.
You save the best for last, right?
You should know that by now, Carl.
So if you look at this area map, the highlighted parcel is the subject parcel. Again, to the east, you have Noyak Golf Course, which is a non-residential lot. We are asking for the relief, and if I could qualify, do you have the survey that shows 30 feet setback for the tennis court, a compliant
Yes.
setback? Okay.
Yes.
Because that
Yes.
was up.
30.3, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Mike.
Although maybe you can
Not
tell...
29.9.
Yeah, but maybe you can tell me where the measurement is.
Where's
for
the 51? I don't see the 51 in the survey at all.
In that one?
Nope.
Nope. So we need one with measurements on it, as you know.
Well, this survey has the, okay, I will make sure that is
Yeah.
distributed. I think the original survey you had has that. That hasn't changed.
Okay, well, the one I have,
The one we got doesn't have it.
at least the one with the application,
Right.
doesn't seem to have it. Yeah.
Well, here, I have this, which has the original, the 29.9, so if you.
Yeah, well, it's got to be
We'll
fixed
resubmit.
anyway.
Yep, I'll resubmit.
Written sub is fine.
I'll do it as a written sub.
Okay.
What else you got, Carl? Anything else?
So so we're asking for that relief. As you can see, the most burdened portion, the only burdened lot is the lot to the south. I have a letter which I will submit as written subs expressing support for this application. There is really no other impacted neighbor except for the flagpole to the west, Noyak to the right, and of course Noyak Road. So in light of all that, the fact that this lot is narrow, is next to Noyak Road, aesthetically, safety purposes, the relief requested we've considered reasonable, in line with the character of the neighborhood, unsubstantial, and worthy of consideration and approval by this board.
And it should be noted that the size of the proposed tennis court is 55 by 109.5? Just,
Just under the 110.
just in case anyone
Listen,
didn't catch that.
it was a few inches. He made the concession.
Okay, well, we have another application that has an issue with that, so.
60 by 120.
Yeah, that's what they want. Okay, all right, so,
Is there common ownership, you said, in one of the adjacent lots?
So in the application, we had noted common ownership. There's a business relationship. It's actually distinct ownership, and that's why, obviously, that adjacent lot is favorable, and I obtained the letter.
Okay.
Yes.
That would be
Okay.
the only affected lot.
It's the only affected lot, and I have a written support for this application.
I forgot to ask about the tennis court, is it sunken?
It will be sunken, yes.
Okay. And screening?
Would you like screening? I can talk to the applicant about screening.
Well, it's not before us for the tennis court.
Right.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
It's not,
Yeah.
it's not.
But they will need a variance for that, right?
No.
Yeah.
No,
Tennis court, we're compliant with tennis.
Setbacks.
Yeah, it's accessory setback, so it's compliant.
Okay. All right. No, just asking.
Tennis court-
Naturally, I'm sure screening is contemplated, given its location.
Okay, okay.
Well, it looks like it's in an area that's going to be not cleared around it as well.
Yeah,
but-
so it may have natural
That's
screening.
not before us, so.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, okay.
You know,
All
Not
right.
here for the tennis
We're
court.
not here for tennis court. So,
Let's just make that perfectly clear.
yes. So, so just, we had some comments from Marjorie Riley, building inspector. And here's what we got, and Carl, you probably already saw it. Okay, so just floor plans and elevations of the proposed two-story dwelling were not available at the time of this review. As such, the dwelling shall comply with all town and building code regulations. 2, the survey shall be revised, or the surveyor can submit a letter outlining the square footages of the buildings and structures used in calculating the rear yard coverage percentage. And 3, the applicant will be submitting a revised survey showing a rear yard setback to the tennis court at the required setback of 30 feet, which you've already done, as discussed with Candace. And that was it.
So, all but the second have been addressed, and again, I'll get you the survey that shows the actual relief requested.
Yeah, okay, very good. Okay, any other questions, members of the board? Katie, Anthony?
Nope.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who is waiting to be heard this evening in connection with the application of M.M. Maria Mendelson Realty LLC? This is for property located at 2538 Noyak Road in Noyak. If not, Mike, it is yours.
Okay, we'll close this public hearing, except for written submissions, to make sure we have all the proper documents, until May 5th, 22, with a written decision.
May 6th.
May 6th. Oh, I was thinking Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah.
One day off.
Sorry. May 6th, with a decision on May 19th, 2022.
Okay,
Thank you all.
thank you. We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Ms. Kern,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess,
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio,
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thanks so much, Carl.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4 on the agenda will be Chandler Capital LLC, 52 Harvest Lane in Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-105-1-17.14. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for a proposed sunken 55 by 110 tennis court with viewing deck. 330-11, residential districts table of dimensional regulations for an accessory side yard setback of 23.9 feet, where 30 feet is required, and an accessory rear yard setback of 26.4 feet, where 30 feet is required. And 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts, and 330-83C yards, to allow the proposed tennis court to be located within the required minimum side yard for a principal dwelling and any other relief necessary.
Court has jurisdiction.
Evening.
Good evening. It's nice to be back here in person tonight.
Susan?
Brian Locascio with the Adam Miller Group, 2462 Main Street, Bridgehampton, attorney for the applicant. Passing forth a few visuals as I go through my presentation. I'll refer to those to help put a picture to this. As stated, the property is 52 Harvest Lane in Bridgehampton, New York. It's on Lot 9 on the map of Harvest Farms. Lot size is 80,325 square feet, or 1 point, excuse me. Currently improved with a two-story frame residence, two-story frame garage, sport court, which we are proposing to remove, a swimming pool and patios. As noted, we're before you for a proposed sunken 55 by 1 foot by 110 tennis court. As shown on the 2021 aerial before you, the tennis courts are a common amenity on this street. I think all but 2 houses in this development have a tennis court. Tennis court's being proposed in a location which is adjacent to the tennis court at 84 Harvest Lane, the lot adjoining to the south. And we also have a letter in support, which we submitted from that neighbor, approving the application. The property line on the rear adjoins an ag reserve, which my client is the fee owner of. As noted, we're proposing to sink the tennis court, and we're also adding a 4-foot hedge screening around the tennis court to further reduce any potential noise impact from the court. And it's also worth noting that the property line between our property and 84 Harvest Lane currently has a mature hedging, so there'll kind of be a double screening from the most impacted neighbor. As noted, we're here for three requested variances. Side yard relief of 23.9 feet where 30 is required, a rear yard setback of 26.4 feet where 30 is required, and permission to place the tennis court within the required minimum side yard. With respect to the required side yard setback, as noted before, we're proposing reduced size, sunken, and screened tennis court, and we're putting it in proximity to an existing tennis court, so it'll be kind of tennis court on tennis court to kind of impact any other potential use or create a new nuisance to the area. Additionally, it's going to be located behind the existing two-story garage, so to the extent from the street, there will be screening from the street to kind of offset the impact that there may be in the potential location in the required side yard. With respect to the requested rear yard relief, as noted, it's an ag reserve that our client is a fee owner of. And so while it is a separate lot, it creates an additional buffer behind what would be the most impacted neighbor to the rear of, I believe it's about 200 feet beyond the request relief of ag reserve, and that property is improved itself with a baseball field, a basketball court, and tennis court. You can kind of see the side of it on that 2021 aerial. So again, it's kind of a sport activity on sport activity area.
I'm sorry, Brian, how wide is the agricultural reserve?
It's approximately 200 feet. I have the subdivision map. I can give you a...
That was the 200 feet you were referring to.
That was the 200 feet I'm referring to. So it's an additional 200 feet on top of the 6.4 feet, the 23.6 feet we're proposing. 26.4 feet we're proposing, sorry.
Thank you.
Yep. And then with respect to the placement of the tennis court in the required side yard, Section 330-83 provides that required side yard shall be open to the sky, unobstructed, except for retaining walls and accessory buildings in a rear yard. R80 zoning with this lot is subject to sets forth a required total side yard of 75 feet with a minimum of 30. It's worth noting that the side yard to the north is currently 88.8 feet, and we're proposing a side yard on the south of 23.9 feet. So while we are located in the minimum required side yard, the total side yard of this lot will be well in excess of what the total required side yard is, or 112.7 feet, where 75 is required. So I think that's worth taking into consideration. With respect to the 5-part test, I offer that this will not create a negative impact or an undesirable change to the character of the neighborhood. As noted, the tennis courts are prominent in this area. There are at least 2 tennis courts that received variances on the street. I submitted the variances in my packet tonight, so this would not be the first non-conforming tennis court on the street. The benefits thought could not be feasibly achieved by any other method. If you look at the property and the way it's kind of laid out with respect to the orientation of the house and pool from the front yard, and then the way the rear yard is kind of funneled and the front and rear lines don't orient, it kind of makes a constrained area in the rear corner, and there's some existing mature hedging and vegetation screening along the pool, which the applicant would like the benefit of retaining. So that's what caused the existing location now.
I'm sorry, go over that again, Brian?
Yeah, so if you look at the shape of the property, it's kind of a curved street, and it doesn't run parallel to the rear yard. The house that was built, obviously, before my client purchased the property, it runs parallel to the street.
Right.
So it kind of creates a constrained, irregular shaped rear yard. And with the location of the pool, the patio, and the existing mature hedging and other trees, landscaping there, it kind of constrains us to this area. And there currently is a sport court there, which we're removing. We offer that the variances are not substantial. The setbacks requested are a 12% variance for the rear yard and a 20% variance for the side yard setback. And it's also worth noting again that we have a letter of support from the side yard, and the rear yard is an ag reserve, so there's no direct impacted neighbor from that proposed location. The requested variance will not have an adverse impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. Again, a tennis court is a common amenity in this neighborhood. Proposed court does not exceed the allowable lot coverage, and there are no sensitive wildlife habitats or bodies of water in close proximity to the subject parcel. And again, the tennis court is being situated behind the existing garage so as to offset any potential impact that it may have to the neighbors across the street or from anyone traveling the street. And again, there's an existing sport court there now that's at grade, and we're removing that with a proposed sunken tennis court that's going to be screened in. So to the extent when these courts are used, I think there would be an argument made that the impact is probably more impactful now with the existing basketball court rather than a proposed sunken court with the screening. And then again, the reasons that led the applicant to seek the variances before you rather than comply with the code was, as I stated before, given the configuration of the lot, the layout of the existing improvements, and kind of the irregular shaped rear yard and the open area that can situate the tennis court. So when taking all those factors into consideration, I think the benefit to the applicant outweighs any potential detriment to the neighbors or the community as a whole. And I respectfully request that you approve the variances. And then with respect to the comments we received from Marjorie in her review, she raised two questions as to the potential legality of a fire pit and a trellis.
Yep.
I submitted in my package before you a 2008 survey, which was approved as part of a 2011 building permit for the gate, and the arbor is located on that survey. And there's also a 2013 survey that shows these structures have been in existence since at least then. The next survey back is 2010, and that was before the work that was done under the 2011 permit. So at the very least, the arbor was in existence at the time the gates were approved and before this board, and it's still there today. But in either event, we're happy to condition any approval if you so give it on clarifying that record.
Yeah, we would need anything on the
Yep.
property that is legal to be legal.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Brian, just wanted to ask you
course.
kind of a general question, to have this clear on the record. So, looking at where the existing structures are located and the unusual shape of this lot, is there a location in the rear yard anywhere in which you could put a tennis court?
Not without removing existing improvements.
Okay. Yeah, which would be at a significant expense. to
Correct,
the
yep.
applicant. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in an ideal world, if this all were proposed at the same time, I suspect it probably could have been done in a way
Correct.
where variances weren't necessary at all. But when you have some work done at a certain point, and then you have a new owner, which is, these folks just bought the property
Correct,
last
yep,
year,
correct.
and then they decide they want a tennis court, they have the structures, the existing structures where they are, and that, you know, poses a bit of an issue sometimes. On the other hand, we have granted fairly frequently relief for tennis courts in side yards, and sometimes front yards as well, particularly on flag lots. And the setback relief is minimal, in my view, less than 4 feet of relief. So it's hard for me. And in addition to that, one of the big concerns about tennis courts is noise.
Yep.
And it's sunken. It's going to be, I think you mentioned screening as
Yep,
well.
correct.
And it is going to be next to a tennis court on the other side.
Yep.
So, well, I mean, and that neighbor, of course, doesn't object anyway, but yeah, even if there
Yep.
were noise, both tennis courts are making noise.
Correct.
Yeah,
Hopefully at the same time.
hopefully. Yeah, yeah,
No, that never works.
yeah. Okay, so that was all I had. Any questions or members of the board?
I went to the property. It's heavily vegetated and screened.
Yep.
It's a large piece of property with a big open area in the back, so I really don't have any problems with this.
This neighborhood loves their tennis courts, huh?
They look like they all have
Yeah.
Take a look.
it. All have it.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Nope.
I'm
Is-
okay with it.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who is waiting to be heard this evening in connection with the application of Chandler Capital LLC? This is for a property located at 52 Harvest Lane in Bridgehampton. If not, Susan, it is yours.
Okay, so we're going to close the public hearing, and we're going to accept written comments until May 6th, and we'll have a decision on May 19th.
Second.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
I,
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all. Thank you. Great night.
The rest of your night.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is Frida Realty Holdings LLC, 12 Carbisle Road in Watermill, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-160-3-25.8. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-77D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in residence districts for a proposed rear yard coverage at 35%, where a maximum of 20% is permitted for a proposed sunken tennis court and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction. Pete?
Tennis court.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening, board members. Nice to be here. Nice to be here in person.
Nice to have you.
Well, it always looks better,
I
I
hope.
think.
I think so, too. Yeah, Zoom is tough.
So just a pretty basic request for relief in terms of, what we're asking for. It's something that the board has seen before, and we try to stay within the percentages that the board has been kind enough to grant in the past. This is a tennis court that meets all the dimensional setback requirements, side yard, rear yard, et cetera. But we need some help on the rear yard, a couple of
can you
things.
speak up a bit?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, Helen. We need some relief. You should, I love it when you say that, because people usually don't tell me to speak up. They usually say something else.
No, we just say speak less.
I gave her a softball. I'm
You
sorry.
did, you did. Oh, yeah.
But in any event, so I have some prior decisions here that I'll go through quickly, but what's going on here is, what we're trying to do is put the house in the area where the house was previously. Actually, the prior house on the property was set back 168 feet from the northerly property line. And again, the northerly property line is where you take the setback, not from this right-of-way, because there's an ownership that runs through, and this is an easement. So it creates this larger setback. And the house was here in this, well, let me show you where the house was before.
What's the size of the pool, John?
Excuse me, it's 55 by 120. Oh, the pool?
No. I
The
mean,
tennis court, 55 by, sunken 55 by, what did we do, 110?
110?
Yeah, and it's sunken. I just want to show you where the house was, and that's important because there's no change in the character of the neighborhood in terms of that fact. I have an old Pinnacle survey that shows the house at 168. How are we doing this? What am I doing?
To
Katie
Katie.
first, okay, I don't know, I should know.
Fine, you
by
know
now.
that by
I
now.
know, I always get confused.
You might guess. Originals on the top.
So what's interesting here is, and this is, we put this in the application, this is a real, in the old days before they amended the state law, this is what we used to call a practical difficulty case. What happens here? It's all about depth of groundwater. We gave you an aerial, and you can see that there's a finger of mecox coming in here. And not surprisingly, you encounter groundwater it's at a fairly shallow depth. So what we did was, if you look at the survey, at the test hole data, you've got groundwater at elevation 3.3. That means groundwater is above sea level. I don't know how this stuff happens, but that's, so the Squires test hole data, and we put the test hole data right in the area where, the general area where we have the house, and that's at elevation 13.5. As you go north, not surprisingly, closer to the water, the elevation drops down to 9 and 10. What does this mean? It means we can't get a basement, a habitable basement, if we had to shift the house to the north. So the whole concept, in addition to not being any harm or any foul, because we're generally closest to an ag reserve, and we have a letter of support from the owner of the ag reserve, It creates what we used to call a practical difficulty. Siting the house to the north would make a habitable basement impossible. I mean, you can't, we'd have about 6 or 7 feet. You can't meet the height level. And not only that, if you're excavating down, groundwater can be seasonal. It's just very difficult. Even when contractors say, "Oh, we'll waterproof the basement," you just can't believe that. You've got to have an appropriate amount of separation between groundwater and the floor of the basement to be able to achieve a true habitable basement. So in addition to the fact that the board has been kind enough to grant relief for this sort of request when you're adjacent to, even where you're not adjacent, but often when you're adjacent and primarily to ag reserve, we have a significant construction practical difficulty in terms of where the groundwater comes up, making a basement very, very difficult, or impossible, if we were to have to site the house at, say, much further, much further closer to the north. So thus the request, not only for the relief as a result of its location to the ag reserve, but also, as I say, a real structural practical difficulty. Tennis court's not unusual in the area. There's a tennis court a bit that would be to the east, way in the back. I'm thinking that must be before 1982-ish, 83-ish, when the town defined a tennis court as a structure. That would be my guess, because I couldn't find a variance for it. So it's probably an old tennis court. I'm not giving you that for precedent for a variance. What I am giving it for you, though, is for character of the neighborhood. So regardless of how it got there, it still functions as part of the character of the neighborhood. Just type 2 action, no impact, no change in the character of the neighborhood, tennis courts in the area, house is going to go where it was. And I don't, you tell me if you want me to go through some of these cases that you've granted in the past. I'll just quickly talk about the percentages. We're at 35. Matter Forever Fields, December 2017, it was 44.3%. And again, that was near an ag reserve. Matter of North Sea Mecox, 28%. Matter of 395 Rose Hill Road, 28.65. These are just from my office. And then I found there was a recent case,
Yes,
RCF, I believe, that was 43 point. Let me think. Where is it? This RCF is 43 point. I want to make sure I get it right. I want to miss 43.8. A little bit of a difference there. That was wetlands. We have a different type of water issue that creates the problem. And then finally, I didn't want to forget about handing in this letter of support from the neighbor who owns the ag reserve. Actually, it's from Mike Solewski, who's the couple's counsel.
Okay.
So anyway, that's where we are.
Okay.
Those are all, there's just one copy.
Sunken court,
Yep.
trying to mitigate any
Right.
impact.
Right.
And,
Did you hear from the actual neighbors? Not
Nope.
the ag reserve, which is across the street?
no, the ag reserve, it's just right here.
Yeah, no, I know where it is.
Yeah, yeah.
I know where it is, but it's across Cobb Road.
Oh, there's one behind it.
Oh, the one behind it. Oh, I'm thinking about the one across Cobb Road. Okay.
Oh, no, that's the big ag reserve. No,
Yeah.
right here, touches.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
I think this
What
is
about
part
the
of
other
that,
neighbors?
unless they're,
You haven't heard from them?
I haven't heard from them. I
Yeah,
didn't know it was right in the
unless
file. I
we're
didn't see
here,
it. I didn't see anything in the file.
There's someone who's,
Oh,
it
there's
looks
some
like there's
people here.
someone here.
Okay.
People here.
We'll hear from them.
Okay. All right. So I just want to mention a couple of things. I'm sorry, do you have any other follow-up questions?
No, I actually went to the site.
Okay.
I understand the constraints of the site. It's, where the house is positioned is, comparable to where other houses are positioned in the neighborhood.
It's actually further north
Yeah, no, it's up.
than where
It's
the
up.
old house was. The old house was 168 feet from the northerly property line. We're 143.
Yeah, no,
So we
it's-
actually moved it further north.
Okay. Okay.
That's what we did.
Yeah. And the proposed pool and patio, is that also in the rear yard?
No, it's just
It's
well,
just-
some of it may be, it just,
Yeah.
let me see, let me look at the survey. Let's see. Hopefully,
This dotted
requires
line?
the rear property setback line on there. No, they're not, because
Yeah.
here's the 70-foot, see it?
Yeah, I see
There's a
it.
70-foot, yeah, so, no, they're not. They're not. And this is not I wanted to mention this, because this is not a greedy transition space back here either. Interestingly enough, I had a case over on, what was it? Rose Hill Road, where you guys granted relief about 23, but then I came back and I showed you that at 23%, I was only gonna have about 10 feet of transition, so you granted further relief for about 21 feet of transition. So the whole idea, obviously you can't have them on top of one another. And again, we have this very significant demonstrated difficulty in terms of accomplishing that basement.
Right, right.
Anyway.
Yeah, so.
It speaks for itself.
Okay. Well, I just want to mention, and when it comes to these percentages with rear yard lot coverage for tennis courts, generally, when it is less than 30%, it's usually, we often grant those applications. When it gets into the 30s, sometimes, there are concerns. Sometimes we ask for what can be done to reduce that percentage. In this circumstance, John, you've outlined a very particular problem that is rather unique. A reason why you have a constraint here that really kind of forces you to be here asking for the relief.
Yeah, I was very, very, very clear to my client and the surveyor, because there were some anecdotal conversations about depth to groundwater, and I said, no, you have to demonstrate this with, the real science. So that's why we have the test hole data and the topographic information, so that you can see it becomes a significant problem.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not surprised in this area, because when you're that close to a body of water, you have the groundwater is actually above sea level.
Yeah, well, but, I mean, if that issue didn't exist, and you were moved, like, if you moved all the structures north, towards Cobb Isle Road, I would imagine at least part of the tennis court would end up not being in the rear yard.
Part of it, but again, I'd still be stuck with this issue where I can't create, I mean, you look back at that case over in Shelter Island, that Baker versus Brownlee case. Why am I here? I'm here because this is the only way I can obtain what I want, which is what the client wants, which is a reasonable request, which is to have a habitable basement. Of course, they'll comply with all the code sections. Nice thing about that is it also has less impact, visual impact. If you put some of these things, people more and more put them in the basement because it has a less visual impact on massing up top. And, the town of Southampton, relative to the surrounding communities, have very generous GFA limitations, not getting near that. I would really prefer to keep this in terms of its scale.
Yeah, no, I'm just speaking about this generally.
No, but I think that's another thing. It really,
Right,
that subterranean stuff allows us to keep the mass down and thus the impact
Yeah,
on
well,
the character. And remember, it's going even further north than where the existing house was.
Right, right.
So, I mean, what we're going to do, maybe move it a little bit, but it's not going to have any impact. You move it 5 feet, it's not going to have any impact, change in impact.
Yeah, well, from my perspective, this kind of limitation on location of structures on the properties is like having actual wetlands on the lot. I mean, basically, you're being pushed south because of this circumstance. Now, yes, you could have a house without a basement. One can make that argument. But, I'm kind of taking a look at the entire thing, and
But the house is already there.
that.
No, the house is under construction, yes.
Yes, it's
Under
under construction,
construction.
yeah. It's not like it's, you've got
Yeah.
a piece of empty property that you can move things around. The
Yeah.
house already exists.
I think it's important, though, because one of the, to talk about that, because one of the reasons people in some of the villages with very significant GFA restrictions, unlike the towns, which is very generous, put stuff in the basement because it doesn't add to the mass. But here, just fortuitously, that's what's happening, and it really negates any impact on. And looking at it as a whole, keeping that those activities in the basement means you have less of a mass, less of an impact. People are always talking about the houses being too big. Here, we're trying to take some of those activities and put them in the basement. And so that has less of an impact from a mass point of view and a size point of view on the neighborhood. Again, further to the north than where the existing house was, but generally in that area. This is a real problem that we've encountered right here. I think a little bit to the surprise of Mr. Frieda, but the groundwater's at 3.3 feet. Is that possible? I said, I guess.
All right.
Anyway,
Is that gonna be a problem taking a tennis court, though?
excuse me? No, it's not that. It's, well, you don't, the basement's going to be a lot deeper than the tennis court. No, that's, when I was thinking about that, when I, you sink the tennis court about 4 feet. It's not going to be a problem, yeah. But, yeah, of course, yeah.
If it were further north, it would be a problem.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Well, no, actually, the property goes up. I mean, where the house is now, it's quite high.
Okay.
So the elevation is quite high.
It drops
And
to go
it's
to the north, yeah.
a little bit, but not, that significant. So,
Yeah, it's a significant, I don't mean
I
to
don't think-
banter, I'm sorry, it just, there's. the
but it's
topographic
not the
changes.
same level as down by the street, let me put it that way, so.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay, all right. So I know we have some people who are waiting to be heard. For that, any other questions from members of the board? Katie, Anthony? Okay, all right. So is there anyone from the public who's waiting to be heard this evening in connection with this application, which is the application of Frieda Realty Holdings LLC? This is for property located at 12 Cobb Isle Road in Watermill.
Yes.
Hello, good evening. You can either have a seat or go to the podium, whatever you'd prefer. And we can get another chair for you if you'd like, or you can take turns, whatever you prefer.
yeah, okay.
And I just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney.
I am an attorney, but I'm not acting as an attorney at this.
You're not, but if you're a licensed attorney, I don't have to swear you in.
Okay, fine.
You can state your name and
Okay.
name and address and not have to be sworn in.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Jim Rahonda, and this is my wife Stephanie Young, and we are homeowners at 142 Cobb Road in Watermill, which is abuts the property that we've been discussing. And we are here to oppose the application by Frieda Realty for the variance. The zoning board asks a very important question. It's number 15. It could actually be the first question on their form, which is, will the grant of the variance cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, or will it create a detriment to nearby properties? We think the answer to that, to both of those questions, is yes. The answer that was supplied was that it would not cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or cause a detriment to nearby properties. And interestingly, in that, the rest of that answer, there is no mention of our property. There's a mention of a property to the east and a property to the west and a property of the ag reserve, but there's another property that butts that, and it's our property, and it's the one that would probably be affected the most, given the placement of the house and where the tennis court would go. As to the ag reserve, as you can see from the aerial map, the home on the ag reserve is at quite a distance. And so I can imagine that they, to the extent they applied a letter, which I haven't supplied a letter, which I haven't seen, I could see that it wouldn't cause any detriment to them. They wouldn't be able to see it from their home. They probably wouldn't be able to hear it. I didn't hear that there's a letter of support from the neighbor to the east or the neighbor to the west. Certainly not a letter of support from us. And what I would say in terms of the detriment to nearby properties and to our property, and perhaps to the neighbors on the east and the west, is obviously our pool and our pool house is directly abutting as close as you can get lawfully with the variance to their property line. And a tennis court, I think, with the noise, and especially we use our house in the summer and the fall and the spring, in fact, all year round, we think it will be disruptive and just cramming too many different pieces of, too many structures, the pool house, the tennis court, and what is you're welcome to come. I know you've at least one member of the board has visited the property. You can come and look from our property and see what is there, which appears to be a very massive house, and they're going to squeeze in, and it's hard to imagine actually a pool house and a pool and a tennis court are going to go between our property and that house, because it doesn't look like it would even fit in there.
Just had a question. You're adjacent west or east?
South.
Or south?
South,
Okay.
yes.
Southwest.
I think it's shown on
That
the
one.
survey,
Okay.
James Rohanda and Stephanie Young.
Got it, yeah,
Yeah, and it's also in the, it is in the aerial as well.
yep. Thank you.
So certainly, I don't think there's any consent from any neighbor who actually could be impacted by this property. It's also not, to the second part of the question, is it customary? It's not customary in the neighborhood. And the aerial photo does show two properties down a tennis court. If you notice, you look at that aerial photo, it's just a tennis court. It is a piece of property that's owned by a neighbor who's all the way down the end of Cobb Isle, who has a house there, but bought a separate lot to put a tennis court on, and it's the only thing on that piece of property. They certainly purchased that property since 1982. It was a very big property and purchase at the time. There may have been a pre-existing tennis court, but other than that, I think there might be one other tennis court on Cobb Isle. It is a beautiful piece of watermill. As you drive down that drive, it abuts the water. There's a lot of natural beauty. There are not tennis courts. So I don't think it's fair to say that it's customary. In fact, I think that there are only two. The other thing I just want to point out is that this is not an owner, right? This isn't an owner who's asking. We're good neighbors. We didn't have a neighbor come to us and say we would like to put a tennis court in our and have a variance. This is a real estate developer based in Livingston, New Jersey, that it wants to put this tennis court in. There's no reason, at least as far as I know, why, if that property is sold, that the new neighbor couldn't come in if they wanted a tennis court. We don't even know that anybody wants this tennis court crammed into the backyard.
But that having been said, even people who are not the owners living on the property are entitled to make applications.
Absolutely. I have nothing against the real estate developers, but I do think it's important that this isn't somebody who's trying to, obtain the enjoyment of a tennis court, who's seeking this variance. And it could, and obviously, in that situation, there would be a discussion of other things that have been mentioned by the board about screening. There's been no mention of that. There's no discussion of anything in here about screening or anything other than sinking the tennis court 4 feet. And I would just say and also as to the letter of support from the owner of the Ag Reserve, I guess one question is, that property, I think it's pretty well known, has recently gone into contract and perhaps been sold. And so I would be curious as to whether this was a letter of support from somebody who is leaving the property or whether it's from the new owner.
Counsel for the current owner.
Yeah, and is that the current owner after the sale, I guess? is the
Counsel
question?
for the current owner closed sale. Current owner after the sale.
But you can certainly look into the deed history if you're interested in, gathering more.
Yeah, I just didn't know who
It's all
wrote
public,
who wrote the letter.
public information.
Yeah. But in any event, the owner of that Ag Reserve is quite a distance away. There are two houses on that property, and they're quite a bit distance from the neighbor. Anyway, I don't know if my wife has anything she wanted to add,
Okay.
but
And I have to swear you in if you want to give us some testimony, and you have to come up. You have to come up because we have a recording system, so we need you either there or here.
Well, I was going to say I don't have anything to add.
Oh, okay,
Thank you.
okay, no
I-
problem.
thank you.
Come up.
And just one clarification, when you allow additional written materials, that would include our ability to submit additional written
Oh,
materials.
absolutely.
and Photographs and, okay,
Most
thank
definitely.
you.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
I want to first of all ask whether if there were screening of this tennis court, would that make any difference to you?
Well, I don't think it would affect the sound. I mean, right now, when we go back, before we didn't see the house that was there. So this is quite different in terms of what we see there. It's a massive construction site, and it would make a difference perhaps with just seeing the whole piece of property. I'm not sure it would make a difference with respect to the tennis court. In particular, I think it's the noise and the sort of disruption to the neighborhood, which I think wouldn't just affect us, but would affect other neighbors who aren't used to that
Yeah.
in this neighborhood.
Well, I have to say, as well, they're not asking for setback relief. It's conforming in terms of distance. The relief that they're asking for is relief from rear yard lot coverage. That is, so that in the town of Southampton, there's this 20% max in terms of rear yard lot coverage to put any structures. And usually, when we have issues with rear yard lot coverage, they involve tennis courts, usually. But it is conforming to setbacks.
Right.
So I just want to point that out. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
I
yeah.
understand that, and,
Yeah.
you know, as you said, you know, when you get to the third, I could see the reason for the limitation. I think it's a very good rule, and I could see going beyond that. I mean, it's going well into the 30% when you look at the coverage.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not a builder, I'm not into real estate, but if you were to stand in our backyard and look at that, you would think that is quite a bit of buildings and structures that are going to go into this backyard behind this house. It is a pretty significant change to the neighborhood, I think, to add a tennis court.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions from anyone?
Can I ask a question of John?
Oh,
When the,
Are we done with this?
oh, I'm
Jenna?
done, yes.
Thank you. Okay, all right.
I appreciate
Thank you.
follow-up questions. Sorry.
That's okay.
I just did want to point out that it appears that the objectance lot is a substandard lot and has a pool about maybe 20 or 30 feet from the back of this conforming lot, and also to point out that we're not asking for any setback relief, and setbacks are what establish. I mean, someone could, but for this issue, someone could we could put our court there, and we're attenuating it with sinking the court, which does very, very effectively attenuate sound. And screening is not an issue. If you want to put that as a condition, I'd be foolish to say anything to you, but of course. I'm sorry.
No, my question is a general one, like, when you planned for this house and you had the basement issue, did you have in mind a tennis court as
Yes.
well?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You did, all right. So in your initial submissions for the building department, everything else included the tennis court?
Well, it couldn't have, because we had to come and ask for a variance. But we sat down and we looked at it, and quite candidly, we looked at the relief that the board had granted in the past. We looked at the fact that we had a very significant demonstrable practical difficulty here. And I was of the opinion that if the board was being consistent with its past practices, it would in all likelihood grant the relief. That's what I said. As I say clients to clients all the time, you can't guarantee anything, but one thing this board is known for being is consistent. So, you know, and that's important.
No.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's a board that's within less than a mile from here, that had for 45 years was very consistent, and now is anything but. So, but that's
Times change.
is a very important thing. So, yes, I handicapped it with the client.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just being very candid with all of you.
Yeah, yeah. No, and the fact is, on occasion, we grant relief for greater than 30% for rear yard lot coverage. But usually we have to, there has to be a set of facts and circumstances that justify it.
If you didn't have the ground border issue, I would have said, move the damn thing to the north. It's a real issue.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think in terms of, and I'm glad one of the concerns that the objector had was the size of the house. It's not, massive is a word that's really gets sort of thrown around, but one of the things we're trying to do here is actually reduce the mass of the house by putting a lot of these amenities in a subterranean area. So I think, we could put them up top, but it doesn't make sense. It simply doesn't make sense. But anyway, I'll leave it in your good hands, unless there's any other questions.
Any other questions? Oh, just wanted to check, I don't think we had building department comments on this one.
You did.
We
Marty
did?
wrote a denial.
Okay.
For the very reasons that we made the application for.
Okay,
So you're-
okay.
Rear lot.
Rear-
And then there's not dimensions of the proposed court on the
No.
survey?
Oh,
There's
it's
the
55,
size.
we can put it.
Yeah, if
55,
you can put that in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be great.
For the pool, I mean,
We scaled it, but I'll make sure that Squires and Holden puts the 55 by 110.
110.
55 by 1, thank you.
Okay, all right.
No professional tennis player.
No professional tennis
yeah.
players.
No, that's 60 by 1.
We'll play tennis in college, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And also, east-west, so you get,
Yes.
not, no other way to get there, though. You can't do it north-south.
Yeah. Yep.
Anybody else have?
Yes, just want to ask, is there anyone else in the public waiting to be heard in connection with the application of Frida Realty Holdings LLC for property located at 12 Carbisle Road in Watermill? If not, Keith, it's yours.
All right, seeing and hearing no one, I'll move to close the application, leaving it open for written submissions to 5/6 with a determination on 5/19.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
I,
Chair votes aye. Just so you folks know, you have until May 6th to submit anything you'd like to us in writing. Thank you. Okay, all right, okay. Thank you all for being here, greatly appreciate it.
Okay, item 7 on the agenda is Third Garden Park Limited Partnership, 58 Old Country Road in East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-289-2-9 and 900-251-1-3. Applicant appeals the September
You
13.
don't have to read it, Keith. We already opened this.
Oh, you did? Okay. Hey, man, I won't read it. Absolutely not. Huh?
You could read it.
No, I don't want to read it.
It makes my job.
Probably read it already once.
If I,
move the chair,
what do you want me to
move the
do?
2 chairs this way.
Helen, what do you want me to do? I'm
She
just trying
wants
to
she wants to
read it.
choose one so she can hear you guys better.
Oh,
You can move them
Yep.
this way.
oh, okay. I'm just trying to follow orders.
This is the original Adam.
Yes.
Oh, and this is your.
I don't know if this is gonna work. Oh, there we go.
Herb used to say, do you get paid by the pound?
That's too high, right?
No, it's not.
That's
No, it's
fine.
not too high?
I can't see over, I can see over.
Talking about the size of this. Oh, yeah.
Just let me know and I'll start.
I think we're ready.
Okay, I'm John Bennett, I'm here for the applicant. Great pleasure as always to be here with Kim Judd, who is done an amazing job, and I'm gonna try to get to Kim as quickly as possible because she's got the real nuts and bolts of this in terms of a really long past practice of how the town has interpreted what a mobile home is and what is the appropriate way to deal with it when you replace one mobile home with another mobile home. And what you're going to see is that even in this, twice in this, on this piece of property where expansions were granted, it was always the number of units, the number of pads, number of units. There was never any inquiry as to gross floor area. And it's something that's unique to mobile homes, but it is a long established past practice, not only from this board, but from the building department. And you're going to see time and time and time again, for some reason, this is the only time we've ever encountered the building department inquiring as to what the relative size of the replaced mobile units are in comparison to the existing ones. It came as a surprise to us. As a matter of fact, as Kim will tell you, and as you can see from the affidavit that Mike Benincasa, the previous building inspector, has put in the file for us, our initial meeting with the building department was, not surprisingly, look, we never looked, it was replacement unit for unit. We never inquired into what the size of these units were. And we're going to demonstrate that without cavil, without any dispute. That's what happened. So what are we trying to do here?
Should we just swear in Brian Daly? He's one of the principals from Third Garden Park. He's sitting over here. I don't know if you want to just
I can swear him in.
Oh,
Okay, so I don't have to
you are
swear you
Brian,
in.
I'm sorry. Never mind.
Okay.
I
All right, we're gonna get down to the nuts and bolts now?
Yes.
So what we're going to do, currently on this project, there are 42, mobile home
Want
units.
to refer to the chart?
Okay, well, just right here. There are 42 units here, so, because we're not asking for an expansion of the number of units. The board has done that previously on this piece of property. Tim's going to talk about it. 42 units here. Some of them share wastewater systems. They're ancient wastewater systems. And I'm going to say this probably 3, 4, 5 times. I'm sorry. Somebody throw something at me if I get too repetitious with it. But the amazing thing about this is through a system of a series of grants and obviously private money as well, we're going to take all of these 21 units, going to migrate to the northerly part of the property and connect them all to IA systems.
So you'll see over here, I'm sorry, John.
Yeah.
So there's 42 units here. We're going to take 21 of these units, and we're going to move them. Can you see them proposed back here? So this is a 94-acre parcel. We are only occupying, I think, 8 acres of it right now. And there's plenty of room in the back. And John will tell you the reason why we want to move them to the back of the property.
Well, again, some of these mobile homes share septic systems. We're really trying to bring these things into the future. That, in and of itself, I mean, I know we're here on an interpretation, so it's really not here for a variance request, but in and of itself, I think carries the day. You're going to have 21 wastewater systems, antiquated wastewater systems, moved to the north with IA systems for each one of those individual units.
What's going to go on the property that you're removing them from?
There's 42, 21 of them will stay here.
But we're not replacing.
We're not
21
replacing
more.
them.
So I'm just-
Oh, no, we're not double
Yes.
dipping. No, we're not
That'll
asking,
remain
that's what, my whole position on this is not an expansion, not expansion.
That'll remain
No,
vacant.
no additional units. The whole question is all of a sudden the town has an issue with the square footage of these units, the mobile homes. We'll show you, and Kim will show you, that you came in, all these parks, you come in, the mobile homes get a little bigger over the years because they have to meet different standards, and which is a good thing also. Of course, they have to get more reasonable in modern living, but you would come into the building department and say, I want to put a new mobile home on this pad, and they say, here. Never any inquiry as to the gross floor area. Twice this board looked for, had an expansion before it, and twice it talked only about the number of pads, number of units. Absolutely no inquiry as to what the square footage was. So this has been strange for us. So we're really here on the interpretation of the building inspector. We think the former chief building inspector, not the one before that, the former chief building inspector. I was writing a letter the other day, and I was making reference to.
Did you identify the name?
Excuse me?
Identify the name of who you're talking
The
about.
affidavit is from Mike Benacasa.
Okay.
The interpretation that we're objecting to is
From Dennis.
from
O'Rourke.
Dennis O'Rourke, sorry. I did want to add that I was writing a letter the other day, and I said to one of my secretaries, one of the people, I was referring to former chief building inspector O'Rourke, and I did say former chief inspector Dreyfus. She didn't get it. I think I have to be a certain age. It's Pink Panther.
Okay.
But in any event, so prior to going to the former chief building inspector, Kim had met with Mike Benacasa, who, as you can see from his affidavit, said there was never any made, and no inquiry was ever made into the square footage of these things. Never any gross floor area limitations whatsoever, ever, from this board or from the building department. Given what is the past practice, and given the fact that this is a hands-down environmental benefit, we think, and this is going to sound bold, that the board would be remiss to do anything other than grant the application. So where do you see references to mobile homes in the town code? You see one in section 330105E. All it says, it has a separate section, it says mobile homes, it says 600 square feet minimum. Minimum. The town board, the legislature, had the absolute ability to put a maximum there. They never did. And that's one of the reasons why no one had ever made any inquiry to this. There's also section 220, chapter 220, which talks about manufactured and mobile homes. It has no reference whatsoever to a maximum. Now, Dennis says in his letter, well, that's, chapter 220, it's not part of chapter 330. What do? Any lawyer will tell you, land use lawyer will tell you, when you don't have a definition, sometimes you go to the dictionary, otherwise you try to look at other similar codes, and particularly one in your own code. There's a definition of mobile home, talks about its reliance on other federal standards and for manufacture, HUD standards and everything like that, but it doesn't have anything at all about a maximum. Then there's a 72 decision from this board, and Kim will go into that, and a 82 decision on this board allowing, the 72 decision allows 34 more pads, and the 82 decision allows 20 more pads, expanding the prior use. Nothing about no square footage inquiry. Just has never been a square footage inquiry on mobile homes. And so we think that that's binding, and the building inspector should have followed that. Anything else is inconsistent. From a policy point of view, no matter how you cut it, these homes are also a significant source of affordable and workforce housing. So I don't think you should be straining to take an interpretation that's different from the well-established interpretations, not only in writing, but by practice of the town board. Again, not asking for any expansion here. It's not right. Think about, if you follow Dennis's logic, anytime anybody in any one of these mobile home parks wants to bring in a new, saves up, buys a new mobile home that's 10 square feet bigger, they're going to have to come before you, pay a fee, pay the engineer, pay for a survey, pay for a lawyer, all of that stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not logic. From a policy point of view, from a rule of reason, it just doesn't make any sense. This interpretation has become sort of part of the interpretory canon, and people, make their decisions based upon these decisions of the building inspector and the board. And Kim will tell you, we have in our memorandum of law a very, very, very powerful case out of the first department where the building department of the city of New York for a long time made an interpretation based upon what looked like it should have been the contrary interpretation, and the Board of Standards and Appeals was involved, and then the court said, people have relied on this interpretation for a long time to the extent that there's any ambiguity. And here there's ambiguity that you can, I don't even think, from a worst case point of view, there's ambiguity, and you have to, as we know, construe that against the municipality. So with that, I hope I've given you enough of a background. I hope I've given you enough of, the nuts and bolts of what we want to do here. But I think it's important for Kim to go through chapter and verse of the past conduct of the town.
I'll try to do this really quickly. How this issue arose is this plan, when the planning board saw the plan, you can see that where the older units are, right? Because they're small. And they're all on Old Country Road. This property is 94 acres. It goes from Sunrise Highway. And the survey's not long enough, so if it was, it would go farther this way, and that's why I put the aerial, which is in your package, but you can't hardly see it because it's a 94-acre parcel.
But it just,
So-
here's the area,
And it
the survey,
continues.
and you see the match point. This is the match point.
So,
Sorry.
one of the planning board members said, well, your units, your new ones are a lot bigger, are larger than the ones in the front. I said, yes, they are. The code does not prohibit or have a maximum size. It has a minimum, but it doesn't have a maximum. I was asked by the planning board to go get an interpretation from the chief building inspector, which I did. I met with Mike Benincasa. I gave him all the old 1982 zoning board decision. There was a 1982 ZBA decision that granted 20 mobile units, and this was all part of the 50% expansion. So they based the number of units that we could have, the 102, based upon, over the years, how many we were proposing, and that we're maxed out. So we know it's 102 units. We can't propose more than that, even though we have 80 acres left to develop. But be that as it may.
But the
and-
expansion was always based upon a percentage of units.
Units, not.
Units.
Not the size of the units.
Not the size of the
Correct.
units,
So
yeah.
1982, the zoning board said, here's 20 units based upon it. And actually, there was another one before that, I apologize. 1970. 72, where they granted 34 trailer plots. So Mr. Benincasa said, I'm not going to disturb that because the board has already spoken. They did it based upon units. And he actually, Mr. Benincasa, picked out a provision of the code that in 25 years, I think I've seen twice, and this is the second time, and you'll probably never see it again. But in his affidavit, he says even if the zoning board decisions weren't there, he says he still would not have done it by square footage. And he points to a provision in the code 330-167B1D. We're all familiar with B1A because that's 50% expansion. B1D, and I think this is only the second time I've ever seen this, it says the lot coverage and density shall not be greater than would be permitted by the most restrictive lot coverage and density provisions of this chapter. The term density includes, among other things, a number of dwelling units based on the lot area. So that was one of the other items that he placed in there. And lastly, he said, and you'll see that it's backed up by planning reports from the 1972 zoning board decision. And he also says that this was the past practice of the board before he even started working here in 2002. And in the back of his affidavit, you'll see that, 1982, the planning staff report, when they were writing a referral letter to the zoning board in support of the additional units, references that particular provision. And I'm not going to go into detail, it's in here, but it's very interesting because I've never seen that.
Well, the only
part of
time,
the
I will
code.
say, it's interesting, the only other time I've seen that put into use was, there was a conversion of some hotel units on either side of, what's the road that you, it goes along Shinnecock Canal? There's the light, there's the light by the gas station. What is it? You drive down it all, people drive it all the time.
North Road?
It's the first right is Fanning Avenue. So what is that? It's not.
That's Coon Place.
New Place Road, yeah.
Yeah.
The old Milton's, those units there.
Yeah.
The way that happened was because the number of units never changed, and it was not larger than the coverage allowed for the largest use in the area. That's the only other time I've seen it, but it's sort of analogous.
It's very unusual. You probably will never see it again after tonight.
This board has addressed it before.
Oh, you
Yeah,
have?
yeah, I've seen it,
Okay,
yeah.
very few times I've seen that. But in any event, he gave a verbal determination. I went back to the planning board meeting, at the time it was on Zoom. I advised the board of his decision, and then a couple months later, Mr. Benincasa left, and the planning board asked me to go renew my interpretation with the new building inspector. And I said, well, I already got one from the old building. How many times do I have to do it? So I went back, they asked me, I went and met with Mr. O'Rourke now, who's the new chief. I met with him twice, I gave him all the same information, and 6 months later, he wrote me an email saying that it's a non-conforming use and its expansion and would require variance relief. I spoke to him and I said, I can find easily handfuls of decisions in all different trailer parks where over the years that the units have gotten bigger and permits issued, and he said, I understand, and I advised him I was going to appeal it, and that's what we did. So you'll see a lot of this is because I had to submit certificates of compliance for all the units, because that's part of the application. So the ones that I flagged in my memorandum of support were 8 certificates of compliances where the units got bigger. And 2 of them were signed off by the building inspector who gave me the adversarial determination.
If I may, because let me give you just a little break. This is lot 23, larger unit, 12 by 50 to 14 by 54. Unit 31, larger unit, 12 by 60 to 16 by 60. Lot 48, 12 by 6 to 14 by 60. Unit 55, 12 by 60 to 14 by 64. Unit 57, 12 by 63 to 14 by 66. These were, if you applied the logic of this new ruling from the former chief building inspector, every one of those units would have had to come to you, because they're larger. But I think, just from a practical point of view, the town took the position, based upon the paucity of anything other than minimal lot sizes for these mobile homes, that was going to be their interpretation as it related to mobile homes. So you have, not only you have this board acting by, when an expansion came in before it twice, talking about just the number of units, you have the building department not inquiring it. And that's important, because that becomes the law. That becomes the law. And we have authority for that. But yet that doesn't surprise you. People have to live by the course of conduct of a building department over the years, and that's what's happened. This is a very significant impact on the mobile homes areas in the town. Do you really want people coming? Is that a fair thing to say? You bring in a mobile home that's another 10 square feet, another 1 square foot larger than what you have on the existing pad, and you have to go through this whole McGilla here. That's why the building department never did it. That's why the building department did it. And it was just to do anything else would be unreasonable. For whatever reason, that's what they've adopted, and I think there's a lot of policy reasons behind it. And all we're asking for is for the board to say, that's what's happened for years, 40 years. Now we're changing. And again, I'm not asking for any density increases here. And again, this is more of what I would be arguing on a variance standard, but 21 of these units, some of them with shared wastewater systems, now going to IA systems. I know that's more of a variance argument. It's not an interpretation argument, but you can't. I don't think you can close your eyes to that.
Yeah. I just have a question, because I think it gets to some of why this is sort of important. Well, to try to understand a little bit better. So if we look at just the number of units and what's being proposed, that is all within the 50% rule. If we look at it by all of them, by square footage, are you beyond the 50% rule? Way beyond.
Way beyond.
That's kind of what I thought.
And we're not the only park that is way beyond.
I'm sure.
So
Way beyond based upon
we're-
building permits that were granted.
Yeah.
in the
Right,
past,
right,
you know.
okay.
So
So this becomes a critical issue in order
It
for
is. There's no
for this
question.
park and other parks
Yes, yes.
to be able to function
Absolutely.
really in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, have you looked at every single other park and all of?
I have,
No,
so.
but I don't mean in terms of replacing them, I mean in terms of like prior variances. I mean, it seems pretty clear just based on the prior variance that they did the expansion based on the number. That's what I'm saying.
Not
Do
square
you
footage.
see
The other
variances
parks,
for the other parks?
there's no variances for the other parks because the other parks are much smaller. This is a 94 acre, the other ones were much smaller. When they were developed right away with all units, so.
But that's what I'm saying. I would discourage this board from making sweeping generalizations based on other parks. I mean, we have the variance
Well-
before us in this park.
Well, this is.
On this
yeah,
park,
yeah.
right, but I also submitted the second memorandum in support that shows that I found 10 other mobile home units in other parks that got bigger as well. And.
The units
and
got bigger.
The units got bigger.
With building permits.
With building permits and certificates of compliance, and that's the second,
I mean, in terms of building department practice.
Yes.
yes. Yes, that predated Mr. Benincasa. He came here in 2002, and there's permits and the packages going back to 2000, so obviously they predate him. And in the second memorandum that I submitted today with 10 additional, and there are different mobile home parks, one in Hampton Bays, one in Spionk. If you take, and I just want to just demonstrate to you, if you take the second memo that I handed out and you go to the second tab, that's going to be the Spionk application. Those are the Spionk units. So it'll be your second tab. And you'll see the page comes to 1538 Spionk Riverhead Road.
Yes.
Okay, flip 2 pages. 1, 2. This is what the page looks like right here. You'll see 3 units. that all were added onto, almost double the size of what they had before,
With building permits.
with building permits.
So, let me just ask you, you would leave the 21 where they are and just make them bigger, you wouldn't need a variance?
If to relieve the
You would
21.
replace those with new units,
No, if you're applying his
his theory.
faulty interpretation theory correctly, we'd still be here.
Because any increase in size of any
Any
And
individual use.
one
say-
square
yeah,
foot,
exactly,
one
yeah.
square foot, because it's a non-conforming use. So we have 8 trailer parks in the town of Southampton, they're all pre-existing non-conforming uses. There's only one trailer park
Oh, yeah.
in the town of Southampton that is permitted, and that's the old McLeod's Trailer Park, which is now called Riverwoods, and it's at the Flanders Traffic Circle. They got a change of use variance back in 1972, and this is before CEQA, before anybody did it. They have a use variance, which now their whole
A zone
park is
change,
permitted.
a zone change.
And zone change, and they have units that size there. So the building inspector who made this determination said that the only park that you can have larger, go from single, double to double and a half, is at Riverwoods.
Yeah, but that's totally contrary to the entire practice of the building department and this board. So he was just really, greatest guy in the world, but it was really making the interpretation out of whole cloth.
Well, and basically, we're kind of starting anew here, okay? That is, we're making an interpretation, we're considering everything that you're saying and deciding whether we're in agreement with.
Well, I was asked to go to the new building inspector, and I said, no, I want a ruling, because I'm not gonna be subject over the next 20 years, this
But we're
park, to
also
different building inspectors.
I'm sorry, Kim, but we're also piggybacking on what this board did.
Right.
This board, and again, we're not asking for a number of units, so it's not an expansion change. Predecessors came to this board twice, was granted expansions.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think
Never
that's what
any-
makes this different, is this is the only park that's come for an expansion, presumably. I mean, do you know if all these other mobile home parks have?
No,
have
I
expanded
never
in
I
number?
never saw any expansions in the other ones.
Right, well, but that's what I'm saying, that's why I think.
So
this
the
is
only
different.
expansions they had were individual
Units.
units
Well,
that
they
were
were-
expanded, but not.
No, they gave them well, read the numbers. It wasn't unit by unit. In 1970, I'll give you the numbers. The 1972 decision allowed 34 additional mobile home pads.
For this lot.
For this
Right,
lot,
for
for
this
this very
lot.
lot. And then an 82 decision allowing 20 more pads. Didn't say anything about size. It said, it was all based on units.
Well, I think she means, though, you meant something else.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant where people
I don't even know what I mean
anymore. Okay.
No.
I think I was trying to pick up on the fact that you were talking about individual trailers getting exemptions. Getting a
permits.
permit
Oh,
or
that
a
happened also.
COs.
Yes.
And was the rule 50% on
No.
those? Or
No,
it was
no,
just
no.
one
No.
1 foot?
Unit
And
per
you'd
unit.
have to.
No.
No, I meant like if you keep saying if everybody would have to, a trailer wanted to expand, they'd have to go to the building department or submit for a variance if they wanted to expand their trailer by 1 foot.
If you're
Under his interpretation.
applying his Dennis O'Rourke's rule, which we think is
So
faulty.
he's not basing it on a 50% increase in that particular trailer.
No, what he's saying.
Basing it on,
If you apply his rule, perforce, you come to the conclusion that if you want to bring in a trailer with a mobile home unit with 1 square foot larger, you've got to go to this board.
so you don't.
That's the only way,
You
that's the
don't
only.
think he was calculating that, Adam just asked the question, in terms of.
It had nothing to do with it. No, what he said,
You did-
what he said was, if the units become bigger, you have to come here
Correct.
because it's a non-conforming use.
And there's no expansion
And
of a pre-existing.
Typically, that would be the case. We're not going to argue about that. Typically, that would be the case. We're just saying that these units, this type of housing has been treated, I mean, I'm not making this up. Here it all is. They've been treated totally differently. And I think, based upon my reading of the law, based upon my years in practice, that then becomes a part of the interpretive canon, and you have to follow it. But it's even more important because site-specific, you guys, and when I say you guys, not you here, but you as an institution in the past, granted approvals based for pads.
And no dimensions on
No
them.
dimensions.
Katie, is that true? No dimensions?
Yes, yes. I mean, that's why I'm saying I think that this park is slightly different, because we know they've expanded the density, because we can see it in the ZBA decision.
From the number of units, though, we're maxed out. The way they applied the 50% was based upon units.
Right, right.
Not as you would in probably every other application based upon square footage.
Right.
Or I think the code still says usable floor area. But, yeah, I wouldn't be as bold to argue that you throw the 50% out for everything.
And-
I
and
think
what-
I'd be shown the door very quickly.
And what did the current chief building inspector say? in
I
terms of all
never,
this?
I
Your
was
response?
done. I had already been to two, and I
Okay.
wasn't going to,
Okay.
I actually did
So Sean
have a
was- Sean was
verbal
shy.
conversation. I had a verbal conversation with Mr. Gearhauser, and he says, well, you already filed your ZBA application. We'll let them. So I was like, I'm fine with that.
It's Sean McDermott now, so.
Yes, no, but it was Art,
Oh, it
at
was
the
Art
time
that
he was
spoke to.
acting. He was
Yeah.
Oh, he was
acting.
acting.
When I filed this,
Oh
he
my
was
God.
the acting.
Yeah.
So,
Building inspectors will do that.
Well,
You know?
and sometimes, from what I hear, sometimes you'll have different opinions from different building inspectors
No.
on different things at
Never
from time
had
to
that.
time. So in a way, it isn't surprising that we have, two former chief building inspectors who see things in a different way. And so, that's why we're here, to consider all that.
It's a lot to read through, but I think you'll find it very persuasive.
Kim, is there anything in the prior variances that talk about, like, could you move, is there anything that limits the amount of,
Migration?
yes?
No.
no, but.
Well, but there was something that
clearing
talked about,
was,
like.
right?
We,
No, but-
yeah, but not then, not then.
no,
But
yeah.
clearing does now, yes.
I don't mean, no, I don't.
No,
mean
you're
here.
right. Aquifer Protection Overlay District, not in effect in 82 or 72, I believe, Anthony. But now clearing clearly would, yeah, there's no question about it. And that's one of the things that the planning board and their staff
Yeah, but that's not what
required
I'm asking.
into.
One
yeah.
of the prior variances was talking about, like, future sections of the property or future sections of development. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I did not read any limitation that they were limited to, that they were not allowed to push back farther into the property.
One of the things that did come up at one of the planning board meetings, I think some of the neighbors, I think it's this is a, is it right here? This is the
No, it's up
cul-de-sac?
further, over
It's
here.
up further?
Oh, no, you're right.
No, yeah,
This
yeah,
one,
yeah,
Mulway
yeah.
Drive, yes.
This was, what we used to call them a temporary, they're reverters, so that in the
Right here.
future, the planning board sets them up so that in the future there could be a connection. And I know the owners of the subdivision here were concerned about that and were opposed to it. So we weren't going to push the issue, and I think the planning board.
The planning board, I said, my client said, we don't have to build it, because they didn't want the traffic coming into the subdivision. And they agreed. They said, okay, we won't make that a condition.
I mean, this was set up from a practical and smart planning purpose
Perspective.
to have a tap and a connection there, but there was some opposition to that, so we certainly were going to push it, and the planning board backed off.
This is your park, right? Hugo and Annette?
Yes, yes.
All right, so, I mean, it's kind of cut off here, but it says, this is the determination of this board, therefore, that insofar as the zoning ordinance is concerned, the applicants have the right to expand existing mobile home park to the extent of the area which is shown as section 1 on the plan.
Okay, so if you go to the last page of your handout, there's an envelope there with a bunch of old
Yep,
survey, current and old ones.
Yeah.
I think in the last pocket of this section, that was the last development section that they were referring to.
Section 1.
It's an old Squires, Holden, Weisenbacher, and Smith survey. And those are the surveys that were submitted into the file over the years. Well, one of the funny things, this survey, when you look at, and one of the reasons why it's hard when you look at all these parks, they get one survey, and whenever they do a new unit, the building department never made them submit a new survey. They would submit this survey, they would circle their unit, right here, 55, and submit their application with this, or just a portion of it. They would photocopy it, and it was always accepted for as back as far as 2000, as I can see.
So there's no question that the practice was a certain way with both our board and the building department. And this, and so what we have with Dennis's interpretation, or his determination, kind of veers away from past practice.
Clearly.
Would that be accurate to say?
Clearly.
Okay.
And we think that's, I mean, absent any sort of legislative act, I think that's what you're, I mean, sometimes I can find better words to say things, but I think that's what you're stuck with.
Yeah, yeah.
If I may, I'm stuck.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's kind of, I'm just trying to kind of get a sense of where this is, and kind of what this is, and why this would have a lot of meaning to a lot of people who live in mobile home parks.
It'd have an enormous meaning.
Yeah.
And again, remember, I don't know if there's anyone here to speak one way or the other, but I will ask you to remember, which you will, we're here on an interpretation. We're not here on a variance request. We don't have any more variance requests to make. We're maxed out in terms of the unit. Kim, am I saying something
Yes.
that's incorrect? We're maxed out. The only other thing that could be some sort of zone change application or something, which isn't contemplated. It's a little bit sad because we did have a zone change contemplated. We were gonna get grants and stuff to put a sewer system
Treatment
in
plan.
there. Treatment
Wow.
plan there.
Wow.
But some of the powers in the planning division didn't want to see that.
Yeah. Well, when we have these appeals of determinations of the chief building inspectors, often it's helpful to have these hearings in a way, because the chief building inspector often doesn't have all the information that's being presented, all the background, all the documentation, when that determination is made. And so we have to make an interpretation based on what is presented to us, including what is historical in terms of what's happened in the past with these kinds of applications, so.
Well, this may cut against me, I hope it doesn't, but just for the purpose of transparency, I was sort of surprised because Dennis had all this stuff.
He had everything that, I gave him everything, and I gave to Mike Benacasa, and we met twice.
Okay.
We discussed it.
Okay.
But, so, in sum, we're essentially asking that we be treated with the same standard that not only this site-specific property has been treated, but also the way that the building department has handled these types of units. And it's just from an environmental point of view, again, I can't, it's not, we're here for an interpretation, not for a variance, but this is a hands down winner. All these things are gonna be hooked up to IA systems.
All right. Any other questions, members of the board? Anthony, Katie?
No, I mean, the planning board did their pre-submission conference on there. I suspect a lot of what you hear, if there's anybody in the public that wants to speak about this, we'll have a lot of site plan issues that the planning board is going to address through a site plan process. The planning board is correct, I didn't review the application.
No, he was not the
I
reviewer.
was not the reviewer. I'm not the powers that be in the planning board. So they went through the process that was suggested, and so this board's, I guess, just looking at the interpretation of the
Right.
building inspector. The site plan issues were identified, and we'll work them out through the process.
Yeah.
But we'll have to go back to the planning board one way or another.
Okay. All right. All right, so, if there aren't any other questions, are there any other questions? Okay. If not, I wanted to ask if there's anyone from the public who's, yeah, if you could, that would be great, who would like to be heard in connection with this application. This is for Third Garden Park Limited Partnership for property located at 58 Old Country Road in East Quogue. Good evening. You can either go to the podium or take a seat, which we don't have any seats left, but. So
Hi.
unless you're an attorney, I just have to swear you in.
I am not, you need to swear me in.
Okay, if you can state your name and address.
Deborah Tennyson, 29 Weesick Avenue, East Quogue.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you can tell us your comments.
Okay, I did not come here for this, although I'm hearing this, and I need to say something which I don't know if it really applies to your interpretation. However, the word on the street in East Quogue, my family's been here since the early 70s, the word on the street is that the reason why they want to move the 21 trailers to the back is so that they can have them larger, so they can charge more rent. Right now, they cannot increase the rent, and what we have is a lot of people who are on limited budgets who live in that. They will be displaced. And so I just wanted you to consider that perhaps this isn't just we want to improve the trailer park because we're really good people. We have an affordable housing problem here on the east end, as we all know, and this is going to hurt 21 families. So I just wanted that just for you to consider, that when people do have trailer parks and they want to upgrade them or change them, to think about the economics of the people who live there.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard in connection with this application? John, do you want to respond?
Well, it's strange, I told my client not to respond, he may have something more to say, but it's a strange thing to come up and say, I want to maintain substandard housing. That's what you're hearing.
Okay.
You can't do this, we want to maintain substandard housing. It's just, these are relative to market, all, workforce affordable housing.
It's still a mobile home.
Yeah, is the suggestion that we maintain, it's really, it sort of scratched my head. It's a kind of, I guess I'm trying to make things better. But in any event.
It is a very practical point. We're not pressuring, encouraging, forcing any of our tenants out of their homes. That is not our plan. That has never been our plan. We have tenants who have been there 30, 40 years. We're very loyal to them, and they're very loyal to us. Just another very practical point. The reason the units need to be larger is economics. We can't do this plan with smaller. It doesn't make sense. While we are getting some grant money for the IA system, there are a lot of other infrastructure improvements that need to be made for these additional 21 pads, not additional, I shouldn't say additional, for these 21 relocated pads that just can't happen if we're restricted in unit size. So it's a very practical approach. I know a lot of what we've been talking about is legal theory here and interpretation, but just very practically speaking, if we don't get the variance, we can't do this, and we can't improve the community for the town's sake, for our tenants' sake, and for our sake.
Okay. But I know you indicated that the tenants aren't being displaced. Is their rent going up if they move into the larger units?
I don't know.
Quite frankly, for larger units, yes, we will charge higher rents.
Yeah, but will you still have smaller units that they could still rent?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I know people aren't as familiar with mobile home communities. The tenants own their homes. So it's not an apartment where we can push people out, or their lease expires, things like that. They own their homes. Right. And so as long as they want to stay in those homes and they pay what we consider to be fair, affordable rent for their lots, they're staying there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from members of the board? If not, Katie, is the 19th enough time?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to make a motion that we close the application of Third Garden Park Limited Partnership this evening for all purposes except for written submissions. The deadline for written submissions will be end of business on May 6th, and we will have a decision ready at our May 19th meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
patience and time.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
All right.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all for your presentation tonight. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, the last one.
That's an interesting one.
Yep.
That is an interesting one.
It is.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, well, that's why these get all different things.
Yeah.
Different applications. I make sure that no one can read anything I write. you see.
Is that right?
I can read it, but no one else can.
We have another case.
Kind of. Oh, yeah.
Give me 1 second here.
So if something happens to me, no one knows what I wrote.
All right, number
Number
9.
9.
All these people here for
East Quogue, 535 Realty, Inc., 535 Montauk Highway in East Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map 900, 341-1-52. This is being held over for March 17th meeting. There you go. Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Pedenti, it's 10 after 8.
Good evening, everybody. Okay, so I understand that we're getting an update. Where are we with SECRA on this one?
We had a meeting with the planning board last week, and the declaration has been written. but the-
Re-identify who's here and.
Yes, if you just state your names.
I was going to, right.
Yes.
Charles W. Southern Jr., registered architect, 435 Bayhome Road, Southold, New York.
John Scott Prudenti, law offices of John Scott Prudenti, 220 Main Street, Center Moriches for the applicant.
And could you guys just move a little bit more to the middle?
Yeah, and you both testified previously. You were both here previously.
We
But
have.
he,
Yes.
We have.
tell your
Previously,
associate to move his
John-
chair.
We're just moving the
And not
chairs
the-
over so Helen can hear you better.
Okay,
We're gonna get Helen a big horn.
okay. Back to where we are. Oh, we
Okay,
have,
so
we are going before the planning board again on next week.
Okay.
They asked for a 2-week extension so that additional things could be added to the CEQA that they were writing.
Okay.
They asked us for a couple minor little additional things.
Okay.
They have not voted on it, but they're going to vote on it next week.
Okay.
We asked them if they had any objections if we came to the Board of Appeals. While we were waiting for it, they said no.
Okay. And that's fine, we can listen to what folks have to say, but I think the intention had been, that secret would be complete when we reheard the application, but that's okay. We'll listen to what you have to say tonight.
Okay.
With respect to what they wanted to have fine-tuned for the application, there was discussion. I didn't have the opportunity to clarify it yet with my client. I have, right after that meeting, and that was pertaining to hours of operation, and would we be willing to go in with limited hours of operation? That is acceptable. My client is willing to do that. It was suggested an 11 p.m. Curtailment of the retail activities at the convenience store, as well as the gas station. And additionally, which was not discussed nor requested, but my client wants to make the offer of also contributing and installing, at his expense, EV stations at the park, charging stations at the park located across the street, as a sign of trying to be a good neighbor and a sign at the times with respect to caring for our environment.
Okay, well, and I appreciate that. My recollection is we had, I remember one neighbor who was adjacent property owner who was very upset, very concerned about the application. I see that we have a bunch of people here tonight. Whenever possible, when we have opposition, I don't know whether communication can be had to see what concerns that the neighbors have. They haven't spoken yet tonight, but what concerns they have and how those concerns might be able to be addressed. So I just, putting that out there, it's not required that communications be had, but I don't see a negative in that taking place if both sides are willing. So I'm just putting that out there.
Thank you. We're good with that. I forwarded to your board last week new copies of the latest drawings because they've been revised considerably since you saw them last. The application was for 1,468 feet. We reduced it to 1,350 square feet. Of that 1,350 square feet, approximately 1,000 square foot is retail. The rest is toilets, office, and a counter area, which is what the planning board considers not retail space. At that rate, we are down to requiring actually 14 on the gross area, 14 parking places. We have 9, plus we have 5 fueling spaces, which makes 14. There is also, we discussed the possibility, it is permitted to have parking on the street frontages. There's street frontages which allow parking on both Walker and Montauk Highway. That reducing it to 1,350 square feet brings the expansion down to 14% rather than the original 24%. The other item, okay, accessory parking places, there are 2 parking places that are located in the front yard. There's a 30-foot front yard on Walker Avenue. They are within that 30-foot, but they are behind the 20-foot buffer, which is required off of a secondary road. So that was standing, and John, you take care of
The other aspect with the parking, as we indicated at the last meeting, my client operates 6 other gas stations. Every single one of his gas stations always has an attendant present because he wants to keep the cars moving at the pumps, but it also enables somebody to go briefly run inside. So that does, while not factored into parking areas, I believe that gas stations with attendants move a lot of traffic a lot more efficiently. And my client, that is my client's operation, and that will be his operation here. With respect to the convenience store, we would be asking this board to consider that a convenience store is a customary and by precedent accepted auxiliary use of a gas station type property, building, retail.
I'd also like to bring up the fact that at Planning Board's request, we had 2 traffic studies, 2 traffic experts on it. Both of them determined that there was no parking problem, that there were sufficient parking spaces for the convenience store and the gasoline filling station, and that there was no history of accidents in the area, that there would be no impact on the traffic on Montauk Highway or Walker. And I have that traffic study here, one of them, the one that was requested by the town.
Okay. If you haven't submitted that already, feel free to submit it now if you'd like. It's up to you. It goes to our attorney. Okay.
What we wanted to do was basically bring you up to date on where we were, the changes that have been made in our discussions with the planning board. This has been going on for over a year now. So we wanted to bring you up to date, and so you're apprised of it.
Okay. Which I appreciate. I also want to mention what I mentioned the last time, which is that this is at times, there are adjacent properties that are, you have one with a commercial use, and then it's surrounded by residences. When you have these circumstances, or a lot of residences nearby, when you have those circumstances, the residences are, impacted quite a bit by, I'm sure what the neighbors are concerned about is the expansion of the business. So I try to be sensitive to the extent that I can be of seeing what can be done to address those circumstances when we have residences right next to a commercial use. I understand that you are within your rights to leave things exactly the way they are, and that the neighbors in all likelihood bought the property with what's there having been there, but still you're looking to make changes, and they're concerned. And if I were them, I'd be concerned too, wanting to know what was going on. So in any case,
We are aware of that. We are abutting one residence to the south. The properties along Montauk Highway in that area are zone hamlet office. All of them are. So there's office space and commercial space along that area as there is right now. We're very aware of the neighborhood. We believe that what we're proposing here is a vast improvement on what the site looks like and what the site is now. And we don't feel that the addition, the renovation of the site, more or less, is going to be a detriment to the community.
Sir, if I could just say, you're abutting at least 2 residences.
No, only one residential district.
So,
Residential
no,
district
no-
or residence? If he's
I-
talking about residence.
I believe there is a residence in the Hamlet office.
Right.
That's next to us, correct.
It's
But there's
designated
only one
Hamlet office, but
residence
there's a
distance, which is just south of us.
Yeah,
That's not a residence district.
yeah, okay, okay. All right. Any other questions, members of the board? We have a bunch of people who I think want to say a few words, so whoever would like to go up first, feel free. We're ready.
Do we have a representative of these people here?
Does not appear so. You don't all have an attorney or someone representing you, you're all here individually, right? Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm
Did
not a
I
lawyer.
previously swear you in?
You have not.
Okay, if you can just state your name and address.
Jane Dietz, 525 Montauk Highway, East Quogue.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And I believe we got a written submission from you as well.
You did.
Okay.
So thank you very much. So I am Jane Dietz. I do live at 525 Montauk Highway. I am an adjacent neighbor, despite them saying I'm not. And I'm really here to plead with you not to grant any variance for East Quogue 353 Realty proposal. I really do believe that allowing Bridge Petroleum, the owners of the gas station, to proceed would be a massive detriment to our community and our hamlet. I am not actually aware of a single person in East Quogue or any business that actually supports the proposal. And at first, I do want to say, we are very aware that we bought a property next to a gas station, and we've never had an issue with that. Like, we knew that, and it was fine. Even when they had the little shop going, and like, we were friendly, and everybody got along. But the proposal to expand, to add the convenience store and all the additional parking is completely inappropriate for where we are in this hamlet. Montauk Highway is a busy street, but Walker is not. Moving the entrance is completely inappropriate. That street is a residential street. Kids ride their bikes there. They pop wheelies. People that walk their dogs. It is a very quiet street. And to move the entrance there makes no sense. It would add, it would be very dangerous for a lot of the people going back and forth there. Adding the convenience store is both unnecessary and unwanted. It will add even more traffic at all hours of the day. It would not be appreciated in any way. And this is, again, a very residential neighborhood. If you've been there, if you've been down Walker, it is a really sweet, quiet street. The parking that now abuts in the new schematic comes directly up to our property line. I believe we need to have a 15-foot buffer. It's not even contemplated in the schematic that you presented. I can't imagine how that could be legal. We live there. They would be parking their cars next to our backyard where we sit on our back porch. We would be listening to trucks and cars going all day long, playing their heavy metal music. Like, that's just, how would that make any, it just seems so inappropriate and would completely destroy our ability for quiet enjoyment of our home and our yard. And then I would lastly say, I just don't feel like that you have behaved honestly. I mean, last time we were here, at the Zoom in May, you told Bridge Petroleum to reach out to us and talk to us constructively. And you've never done that. You've never reached out to us to talk to us in any way, shape, or form. I'm very available. You know my name. I'm on LinkedIn. You can search me. You can send me an email. You can call me. Like, you've never done that. You've never tried to talk to any of us. And it just feels like you're always trying to sneak around and trying to get these proposals done and going back and forth. And it just feels so abusive how you behave towards us and our neighborhood. You know, Bridge Petroleum brought a property that has certain zoning that does not allow them to do what they want to do. But I would just respectfully ask that the zoning regulations are there for a reason and they should be respected. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? Good evening.
Hello.
Just have to swear you in unless you were previously sworn in. Okay, if you can state your name and address.
Cynthia Cantor, 3 Walker Avenue.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you can give us your comments.
My property abuts the gas station as well. Jane's a little bit more eloquent than I am, and I'll say I'm very nervous, so forgive me on that. When I purchased my property, I was very pleased to purchase it exactly where it was, exactly what it was. I was able to afford it because I was next to a gas station, and I have my little wonderful part in the East Quogue hamlet. I did my due diligence, and I saw that the property had an HO zoning regulation on it, so I knew that no monstrosity could come in there and replace what was there. You know, I'm used to a little bit of extra garbage that flows by because it's there. I'm used to the garbage truck that comes and takes the big garbage, you know, whether it's at 6 a.m. or 10 a.m., that's fine. I knew I signed on for this. I'm used to the wafting smells of gas when there's that slight spillage that happens on the street. I did not, however, sign up for a bunch of the things. When they took over the property, they did clear everything, which made it look much nicer and cleaner for everybody, but they also did some sort of hardscaping, softscaping, some kind of scaping to their property that causes such runoff onto Walker Road. I'm the biggest victim of it. I live with it. I added some gravel in front of my driveway. I cannot figure out, without spending $20,000, how to get that leak from forming in front of my property. In addition to that, these clients, or these people who bought the property, are seasoned businessmen. They should have done, and I'm sure they did, their due diligence on the property and what the property allowed. They shouldn't have assumed that they could ram through the changes needed in order to turn a gas station into a convenience store, because the town does not deserve to be treated in this way. I agree with Jane. I don't believe that anybody, and you would know if you've gotten any letters of support for any of this. I just am hoping that their rights as property owners do not push our rights as property owners aside. When the plans were first put out, I will not say, I may have signed the card to say they were sent, that may be something else. I contacted people I know in the building department, people in EPA, and people from the department who assured me with the zoning regulations, there's no way that this gas station could be added onto or much less changed. So I do feel that I do have hope that the right decisions are going to be made by the planning board or by any of the environmental boards that have to put this through. I've watched the past meetings that you have had and trying to get as much information as I can. I'm not a lawyer, I'm a mom. And the question of whether the tanks were ever replaced was quite disturbing. Quite disturbing that there wasn't quite a direct answer on that one. So in that vein, we've kind of lost trust in the decisions that the current owner is making on the property and what they're trying to push for. Moving the pumps onto Walker, I don't know if you're familiar with the street, it would be such an incredible disturbance, and in fact, you're moving a gas station from a main highway to a small street just by switching those pumps. And I understand a C of O exists for those pumps and that gas station. A question for me is, does a C of O exist if the pumps are physically moved? Just, that's another, question out there of something that may come up with this. Then they pulled their first application. I thought, well, it's over, that's great. In the veil of COVID, another application is submitted. They have their right to do that. I never received any documentation. I never signed any certificate that I would be signing from the mail or anything. I did see the posting on the telephone pole.
You're an adjacent property owner?
I am. I am the exact.
Let's look you up. Let's see where you are. Let's see where the mailing went.
I'd just like to clarify
Sure.
on the planning board side.
Yep.
Because secret's not done yet, we don't have a complete application, so we haven't held a public hearing on our side, just so.
Right.
the public-
Okay, I think anything I've heard on your side
just-
would
I
have
just want
only
to be
been
very clear about that. We
online,
don't-
would have only been
Yeah.
online, right, right.
Are the cards in the file somewhere? All right, well, I'm gonna open it up. I mean, if I'm looking at the right file. No, I'm not. It's 3 Garden. So who has the original East Quogue?
And this has been open
You
since
have it?
May of 2021, so I mean.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
If you want to.
No, I have, some adjacent property owner said
Yeah.
she wasn't noticed, and I'd like to see whether that's the case or not.
While he's looking for that, do you have
Yeah.
any more comments? Because we usually limit to 3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like at 7.
We really didn't have a bad feeling with them. When they came in, the air pump, we lived, whatever it was. But this variances that are being requested really go far beyond what is expected in the East Quogue hamlet. The people have developed the town so nicely with the park. They're doing the park down at Bay Street. It's a very quiet intersection. I did not see any of their traffic surveys they have done, but I can't pull out of my driveway without going on the other side of the road. I drive a Suburban to come out of the driveway and make that turn. Actually, I think they're doing a disservice if they change the pumps, because their pumps are used constantly by large vehicles with boats and whatnot. And the vehicles that come out of the planned property, anything bigger than a Suburban or even a Suburban would not be able to make that U-turn back to Montauk Highway. They would have to turn left onto down Walker, and as you proceed that way, Bay is a one-way the other way, so then you have to proceed out that whole other very small neighborhood to get out of the properties behind the whole area behind the gas station. I don't know if you're familiar with the area.
Yes.
Okay.
We are.
So Cynthia, I looked it up. So we have a certified mail receipt that you were mailed at 3 Walker Avenue in East Quogue. Should have been the submission on May 10th, 2021. That's what we have in the file, May 10th, 2021.
Certified and I signed it. I mean,
I don't know whether you
the
signed it,
I've
but
only
we
gotten
have-
these where I've signed them in other places where I've lived, so I find
I'll
that.
give you the number if I can get the whole thing.
Anyway, it was sent to you.
It would-
Whether you received it or not.
They're not required to submit.
They're not
green
required to
cards.
have a signature.
No.
Okay.
It only requires that it be mailed.
Okay.
But in any case, it's in the file. We just so you know, we couldn't open the public hearing without all of these
I
property owners
wouldn't
being
think that-
notified.
that-
So when you said that, I had to stop everything, because if in fact you hadn't been notified, this whole proceeding would have a problem. Yeah, do you understand? You had to have been notified. That is, the mailing had to have gone out to you. So we've been provided proof that it was sent out, and that's the reason I looked it up right now on the spot since you raised the issue.
So our feeling is that you don't support this.
I do not. I also went by their other location in, where was it, Center Merchants? Yeah, and first of all, it's not that attractive a building, and their big sign is tobacco and smoke shop, not an other, if by chance these variances got by, what are the next issues we're going to come up with people who seem to be bargaining in bad faith? And I'm not the only neighbor who feels that. Most of the neighbors do. And in addition, I think we feel like we're gathering so much information, we're coming here, the owners or their representation keeps coming in and repeating the same stuff, and I feel that a lot of this is wasting your time and our time. And
Well, we hear.
I know.
Well, we hear applications, that's what we do.
This is our job.
Yes.
I
Okay,
guess my
we
question
can
on
wrap
that
this
is,
up nicely.
is what are the next steps?
Next step is for them to finish secra. It's not done yet.
Okay, and that we,
It's not done yet. This application's going to be kept open.
and we can't put any arguments in against secra, or we can?
The secret's being,
Not with the planning board, we are not in a public hearing.
Okay.
So, the planning
yet.
board's gonna finish
But
the
with-
secret portion, when we do the secret, whether that's neg deck or however it goes, afterwards then, Then the planning board will deem the application complete, and then you will come to a hearing and say whatever you want. But the secret issue is gonna be completed, and you're not gonna be able to speak on it.
Do we as cit-
Unless,
Okay, sorry.
unless it gets a pos deck. If something gets a pos deck, everything is off, then everything stops in a whole.
Okay, okay.
But, you know, let's not get, I'm sorry.
The terminology I'm trying to take to.
Sorry, Sage.
That's okay. I think that
So
is.
you're going to
I
have
think we
plenty
should
of
make
more
time for
opportunity
somebody
to
else.
voice, either write written submissions, letters.
Okay.
and There'll be other public hearings on this matter.
Okay.
How will I know if I'm notified or I won't be? I have to.
It's on the
You're
town
here.
website.
It's on the town website, but definitely just keep in touch with Candace. So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of East Quogue 535 Realty, Inc.?
Yes, sir.
Would like to keep.
Come on up.
3 or 4
Sir.
minutes, wouldn't we? Can we ask to keep it?
Good evening.
My name is Raymond LeCan,
Okay, and I just had to swear you in. If you can state your address,
35 Walker Avenue, East Quogue.
and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing
Yes,
but
I
the
do.
truth?
And tell him to spell his last name.
If you can spell your last name.
L-E, capital C-A-N-N.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay, you can tell us your comments.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My comments have to do with the, really the technical and the ability of this building to look comfortable in a residential area. Those are the two comments I want to address tonight. I've already issued a 13-page letter which should have been delivered to you on the subject about a very great many other things, most of them technical. I'm not going to go over that. I want us all to have a nice, quick evening here. I will stick to 2 or 3 issues, and that's it. First, as an engineer, I find it uncomfortable to live with the ownership of this station as it is. I discovered just by talking to the EPA in the last 48 hours that there was a second spill, because I mentioned the original spill in the 70s in my first report. There was a spill in 88, and I'm now researching that because that was news to me. It was never mentioned by,
Okay, and you have to address your comments to us.
it was never mentioned by the petitioners. So therefore, it's something that I suspect someone should look into. Because it's serious. to have-
Well, you can gather information and submit it to
Okay.
us. Anything you
I
find,
will.
you can
I'm-
submit it
I'm
to us.
issuing a new report
Okay,
tomorrow.
okay.
Okay. The second major issue I have is on the residentialness of this facility. Okay, I feel for the boards who will have to study this because your code doesn't define what that really means. And I see your people, very good people on the planning board, struggling with trying to make it look like or seem like or fit in with a residence. I see Chuck working his fanny off, trying to do things to it to make it look good. They don't work. They really don't work. That roof over the islands actually looks absurd. And just today, I went on the internet, and believe me, I will send you a copy of this. I put in ugliest gas station in the United States, and guess what I got? I got a vision of a station that looks so much what you've drawn. I'm sorry to say that, Chuck. It would be difficult
Okay.
to set them
Please
apart.
direct your comments to us.
Okay. So therefore, I think that's an aspect of the job that you're attempting to do, and I respect the people on your planning board so much. When I
We're the zoning board of appeals.
No, I've never met you before.
Oh, okay.
It'll take a while
I
to
just wanted to
decide.
make sure you didn't think we were the planning board.
But on the planning board, when I see what the chair does, what Robin, I think her name is.
Jackie.
Yeah,
Jackie.
Jackie. No, Jackie, the other
Jackie's the chair.
And Robin
Yes.
is the second person who does a super job. and I want to commend them.
Okay.
I can't say that for everybody
Okay.
on the board, but those two people worked very hard to do a job for you. And
Your third point.
my third point is that no matter what you do, abandon this idea that you can make a gas station look like a residence. You can't. Now, there are things Chuck might be able to dream up that make it look good. Okay? But please don't put a pink roof over an island and call it a residential look. It doesn't. It looks like lipstick on a pig. It's not going to work. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you for your comment.
Is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of East Quogue 535 Realty, Inc.? Yes. Come on up.
Yes.
I just have to swear you in unless
Yes.
you were previously sworn
No.
in. Okay, if you can state your name and address.
My name's Edward Salzberg, live at 16 Jackson Avenue in East Quogue.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Are you an adjacent property owner?
Not adjacent. I'm about a half a mile away.
Half a mile
On the
away.
block.
Okay. And I forgot to ask the same thing of the last gentleman. Yeah.
I drive past it to get in and out. It's the only way into my block. I just want to make a few brief points. There has to be real concern about the traffic flow. I know it was said that,
And that's part of SECRA, that's part of the
Right.
environmental review.
and anyone who's come down Lewis Road or attempted to go out Walker, particularly in the summer months, knows that it's a very busy intersection and really problematic in terms of, and concern about safety. So I think that is clearly of concern. The question of the need for an expanded station that would include the convenience store. Just want to note that we have 3 delis in our little town. It's, maybe an asset that we have 3 good delis. We already have, there are 2 gas stations existing and one that's less than, I think, 0.2 of a mile. There's also a 7-Eleven about less than a mile away. So the town, and I think the sense of the town and what we would like to see in East Quogue is really a town that keeps the feeling of a small Long Island town. And I just don't think that the expansion is needed or consistent with the feel and the goal of the East Quogue community. So,
Okay,
that's it for now.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Sir, are you an adjacent property owner? No, I'm not. Okay, thank you. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard this evening in connection with the application of East Quogue 535 Realty, Inc.?
One more.
Yep. Good evening. Set to swear you in. If you can state your name and address, please.
Noel Ken, 35 Walker Ave.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And-
Get her last name either. Sorry, it's Lecann.
Okay.
Noel. Noelle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And are you an adjacent property owner?
No.
Okay. How far away are you?
We're 35, so it's down toward the end.
Okay.
But I just had some quick comments I just wanted to add that haven't been already said. So one comment is that the existing gas station is already non-conforming. So, I know that this board is all about the technicals and what's okay, what's not okay. So I just wanted to maybe ask the question rhetorically, if it's non-conforming, what's okay with it being extra non-conforming? You know what I mean? Is it a grandfather-like ability to extra non-conform? That was just one thought that I had. And then the other question I have is, in terms of the...
Because our town code allows for that. That's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
There's a
the
provision
secret
of the code
report...
that
Gotcha.
allows expansion of a non-conforming use.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, and the other question I had was just about the secret report, because a lot of the boxes that were checked are very subjective, so I was wondering if there is an opportunity to, kind of shine some light on some of the checked boxes that are super inaccurate.
And, I'm not going to take any testimony and bring it back to the planning board. They're the ones doing the environmental review. I'm sorry. I'm not going to bring any comments to the planning board as it relates to any of that. That would not be appropriate. When we have a public hearing, you comment on, but the secret determination, if the planning board issues a negative declaration under the environmental review,
There'll be no further environmental review done. There'll be no public comment on it. It's only when there's a positive declaration and it reaches that threshold, then you would have a comment on it.
Gotcha.
So you could send in whatever you want to the planning board, but they're not going to be able to address it at this time. We're not
Got
in a
it.
public hearing setting, so.
Okay, so there were a couple of questions from Jackie and from Robin that actually went unanswered in the last.
Do you think I should be doing that, Katie, outside of the planning board?
No,
meeting?
maybe I should ask you guys. I mean, is there a way for us to find out those answers? Is there some kind of FOIL report or, a way that we can find out? Because it wasn't answered in the last meeting, so how do we
Were
get
there
those?
questions about what was already submitted, that is information that's in the planning board's file?
Well, so there were questions like, gee, why was that box checked in the report? When, given the reality of this, so, and that wasn't answered, and I know that Claire felt attacked, and so she didn't answer those questions, but it would be just really interesting to get the answers, number one. Number two, I guess we will find the answers about if the tanks were actually replaced or not, I'm hoping.
I can answer that.
Okay, and you have to come up. You have to come up because we have a recording system. Okay? You have to come up.
Come join us, Mr. Fedeni.
Yeah.
A question came up for the first time at the planning board meeting last Thursday. What were the age of the tanks? I was able to determine that we have the answer. The tanks are 17 years old. That location has been in compliance with Article 7 and Article 12 of the Suffolk County Health Department and the Suffolk County Code. Notwithstanding that, and these tanks have been continually permitted since. My client has a permit pending for new tanks, even though he is not required to do so. But the tanks that are in there are 17 years old, and they're recertified every 5 years by the county, and everything is within certification. Every 3 years.
Fiberglass, John.
I'm sorry?
Not fiberglass.
I believe they.
Excuse me, yes.
Guess what?
They are double-wall fiberglass tanks.
That are in the ground now.
That's correct.
So let's, Ms. LaCanna.
That answers her question.
All done.
Finished your
Thank you.
You're done? Okay, all right, thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you'd like to respond?
One comment quickly. SEQA is not done by us. The planning department is the one who fills out the environmental assessment form. We don't do that. Those are all their answers, not ours.
You fill out the first part.
We do the original part of it, then they do an analysis of it, and they put in their part, but they're the ones that are the major force in it. We just offer comments based on.
Okay, and it looks like we have another speaker, I think?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Good evening. Can you just state your name and address, please?
Okay. Ann Algieri, 28 Indian Run, East Quogue.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. If you can give us your comments.
Okay, well, this was something I wasn't going to talk about, but I wanted to address it, was the parking. And it was mentioned that there's no impact on the traffic. I caught the tail end of, I think this was at the planning board, where a report was given that there was only 3 accidents reported in the last 5 years. I don't know if I got that right or not, but even 3 in the last 5 years means that's not a good intersection. You know, we have, if you go up the road in Quogue, that horrific accident last summer. And it was then said, well, there was only, there hasn't been a fatal accident there in 10 years. Does that mean that that's not, that it's safe? So I don't think that that really tells us that that is a safe intersection. In addition to that, my husband, who is in the audience, has had 2 accidents there. One from Lewis Road, and he was turning onto Montauk Highway going east, and another time when he was on Montauk Highway and he was turning into Walker Avenue. It's really dangerous because you have that funny type of swivel with Lewis Road. We have concerts in the summer. There's a lot of activity there. So traffic and parking is a problem. Also, if you're going to be putting more spots on Montauk Highway to give them so that they can meet the requirement for parking spaces, we don't have public parking there. We have a real problem with parking, so I just bring that up also.
Okay.
But what I really wanted to address is you keep on asking who is living adjacent. And I know that you take that into account when you're looking at who is going to be most affected when somebody's asking for a change. I, many years ago in '95, was in front of this board, and I asked for a change of zoning for 3 feet because of the pyramid law. And I brought in letters from all of my neighbors. Nobody objected. But I live on a dead-end street in a private community. Who was going to be affected by that? Only the people on that street. It didn't change the character. It was only 3 feet. Nobody had an objection. But this is a little bit different, and I hope you take into account who is being impacted. The people on Walker Avenue, the people on Montauk Highway, right there, are being the most impacted because of the noise, because of the light, et cetera, et cetera. But our whole town is being impacted because that's the entrance to our hamlet. And we love our little hamlet. In fact, the park across the way, that got approved and was purchased with monies from the Community Preservation Fund. That was when Duffy was the town planner under Canusio. And how did that come about? One of the things in the master plan is that it was recommended that you try preserving the centers of our hamlets. And that was important. And community in Southampton is not just made up of woodlands and not just made up of farmlands, but our hamlet centers. That section there, which is now our Hamlet Green, was already approved and earmarked to become a strip mall. And what would that have done? That would have taken away from the center of the hamlet, and it would have just created commercial sprawl. And it was bought to prevent that. And so it would keep then that mixed use and that residential feel and keep the center of the town intact. If you put a gas station of this size, allow it to go with that canopy, which one of the residents really found fault with, and so do I, it's going to just take away that and undo what that park did for our planning. That's also the entrance to the hamlet. If you get off Sunrise Highway, you go down 104, you go down Lewis Road, and you come into the hamlet. And that's what you're going to see. And so it's going to have an impact on everybody in East Quogue, their identity with the hamlet, the character of the hamlet. So I just hope that you take into consideration not just the people on Walker Avenue and right there, but you take into account all of the people and how it affects us.
Well, and I think we listen to what everyone has to say that's going to give testimony,
Mhm.
but in the law, adjacent property owners are in a different place in terms of
Yes.
level of impact.
Yes.
Okay.
But what I'm hoping too is that you take into, as people have brought up, what is this doing to the character of the area, the nature of the area? It's changing it. So that is something I think that you are supposed to look at also, I hope, anyway.
Okay.
And I hope that you do.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Okay, we're not doing second, well, hold on, did you speak on this one or the last one? The last one, okay, sorry about that. All right, I get confused. So I have to swear you in on this one?
Nope. Oh, you do? Each one?
I do.
Oh, okay.
It's a different public hearing. So you can state your name and address, please.
Deborah Tennyson, 29 Weesick Avenue. No, I'm not adjacent.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole
I
truth, and
do.
nothing but the truth?
I
Okay.
do.
You can tell us your comments.
We do not collaborate on our statements, so I too was going to mention that it's changing the character of the community. The canopy is the thing that's changing the character. You have done a great job fixing it up since when Mendenhall owned it. I think that you really fixed up the building. However, that's where it needs to stop. You shouldn't have tarred everything over, but that's neither here nor there. That is still staying within the character of the community. The proposal with the canopy is not. Not to mention that 2.5 miles to the west, you have a canopy in Quogue, gas station in Quogue on Montauk Highway. 2.5 miles going east, you have a canopy gas station near Wild by Nature. So within 5 miles, you go on the expressway, you can't even find gas stations within 5 miles. So it's not that it is needed to have another canopied gas station within that short period of time. So that is what I want to say, and I appreciate the time and effort that you have, okay?
Thank you, appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else, or are we done? I think we covered just about everybody, I think. Okay, all right, okay.
One more.
Yep, one more. Okay. Good evening.
Good evening. Al Algieri.
Yes, and your
Algieri. And I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but.
Okay, and your address, Al?
28 Indian Run Road.
Okay, thank you.
It's quite a while away from where the gas station is planned.
Mm-hmm.
But I represent 700 paid members of the East Quogue Civic Association. And I'm here today under that banner to represent everybody who belongs to the Civic Association. Part of our goal is to keep the Hamlet Way character. Tonight, coming here, for the first time I saw the canopy that they propose that's on most gas stations that made me look at it and say, gee, I'm in Coney Island and I have the Cyclone and right in front of it, Kate Nathan's. That changes the character by far. Someone mentioned something about doing something in our park. I don't remember exactly what that was. Are they asking for some use of some property or area in the park for something? Or did I hear it wrong?
Chargers.
We're going to donate electric vehicle chargers.
They want to put in electric.
You want to what?
They want to put in electric vehicle chargers.
Donate them.
Donate them, yeah.
We don't want them.
Thank
Thank you very much.
That's not.
We'll be
I
back.
don't know that that's true.
All right, thank you for your comments. Anyone else? So we got some really unhappy neighbors. It would be, I can't force anybody to communicate, but I don't see the downside to having a conversation taking place. That's all I can say.
Sounds like the canopy's an issue.
If I may, just in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, make just two comments. At the last in-person, actually or last time we were together, it was suggested that I reach out. That Saturday, I went physically to the house next door, left a business card. I got a call from your attorney, Barbara Rasmussen. I've been communicating. I can.
All right, we don't.
Hold on.
Since I've talked to her, I am not going to speak to the client, but Ms. Rasmussen and I have, and I don't want to think that, I just ignored that.
Okay. Well, if you can give them your contact information so they can call you, would you mind doing that? Would that be acceptable?
I will do that.
Give them some cards tonight.
Cards, or just give them your number, because it would be nice to see, you're all here, very upset, and it would be nice to see, I don't know what the outcome of this proceeding, what this hearing is going to be, but I certainly would like to see issues addressed wherever possible. So I would encourage that. Okay. So that having been said, what else would you like to tell us?
We're good.
You're good?
That's all.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
So you have to finish secret.
We do.
Okay. So we have to keep the public hearing open.
You're on for May 12th?
No, next Thursday, what is it?
Oh, the 28th.
28th.
The 28th.
So,
First meeting in June? Or second meeting in June? What do you think?
well, if the planning board does the secret determination at
Yeah.
the meeting, then we'll be done.
Okay,
So
okay.
If you want to do in May, you probably could do that. I don't anticipate.
Well,
With both?
no, we're full in May.
Okay.
It's-
That's-
First,
that's
the next meeting would have to be June 2nd.
June 2nd or the 16th?
Yeah, June 2nd. Do you have any preference between the 2nd and the 16th?
Oh, the second, please?
Second, okay.
6-2.
Okay. All right. Keith, it is yours, so you will be making the motion.
What works for you?
The 16th.
16? All right.
Oh,
I thought you said.
I thought you said the 2nd.
All right, June 16th.
June 16th.
June 16th.
I'll make a motion to hold this over for all purposes till June 16th.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you all for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of your night.
Thanks, good seeing you guys.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah.
Gotta give out some cards.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go for a boat ride.
Oh, still early, not even 9 o'clock.
Yeah, you,
Oh, he hasn't
you
voted
did
anymore.
what they said. 7:30.
But folks, our meeting isn't over yet. If you could go outside to speak, please.
Get your hammer.
Folks, if you can go outside to speak, please. We're not done yet.
Adam, before we do the decision,
Yes.
just say thank you to Cornelius. He's
Absolutely.
on one of them.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, flat lever.
So Cornelius is leaving our board. This is his last meeting. Cornelius, we are so sorry to be losing you.
Yes,
You've been
indeed.
an excellent board member, and we wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much. It's very nice to say. I really, really have enjoyed being on this board with all of you. It's been a great experience. I've loved it. So thank you very much.
I have to say, I particularly loved sitting next to Cornelius when I started, because he was telling me how to organize my papers and what everything meant. It was, you were a really good mentor for me, so I
Thanks
really
very much.
respect how you consider everything, and you're so thoughtful on your decisions, and even if we don't agree on them, you know, you're very thoughtful, and you're going to be a big loss.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
Agreed.
I think we have a couple of decisions.
All right, Keith has one.
Yep. Keith, you want to do yours first?
95 Inlet Road West LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-176-1-1. This application is for property located at 95 Inlet Road West, Shinnecock Hills. The applicant seeks variances to legalize a frame shed built without the benefit of a building permit. The shed is approximately 181 square feet and a lot burdened by 2 front yards and wetlands. This board does not condone construction done without a permit. The applicant passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Southampton Town Code. Therefore, for the aforementioned reasons, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code to legalize a frame shed 12.2 feet by 14.9 feet, constructed without the benefit of a building permit. Town Code 330-11, residential districts table of dimensional regulations for an accessory distance from the street setback front yard of 13 feet from the westerly property line, North Beach Road, where 50 feet is required. And 2, Town Code 330-76D, placement of accessory building structures and uses in all districts, and Town Code 330-83C yards, to allow the shed to remain within the required front yard for the principal building as shown on the survey prepared by Fox Land Surveying, last revised December 21, 2021. Granted the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Abstain.
Chair votes no. And the last thing we have on the agenda is the application of Werner.
Hold on one second.
Why not?
Cornelius, you're recused on Warner?
And recuse, yeah.
Yep, so you can leave if you want.
Oh, sure.
Or you can stick around, up to you.
I'll wait here for the best.
Okay, no problem. It'll be quick. Okay, so in the matter of the application, I'm sorry, this is a matter of application of Brett and David Moore. The applicants here are neighbors who have challenged the issuance of pre-existing certificate of occupancy number C210111 dated April 12th, 2021, with respect to property located at 10 River Avenue in Eastport, Suffolk County Tax Map number 900-351-223, and owned by Grant Werner. This pre-existing CO was issued for 1 two-story, 2-family dwelling with partial unfinished basement, 1 one-story cottage, 1 two-story cottage. As per the survey dated October 8th, 2019 by John Gallagher. Other structures approved by the following certificates: P083976 first-floor deck on main dwelling and outdoor shower, replace window in bedroom and to egress. Before I ask for a vote on this, I wanted to ask if there is any discussion regarding this application, being that we appear to have a split vote.
Well, I want to make a couple of comments. And this has got nothing to do with me not being a supporter of accessory apartments and all that goes along with that. But the way I look at it, these applicants have asked us to overturn the building inspector's CO, which recognizes one house with an apartment in it, another cottage with an apartment in it, and another cottage with an apartment in it. And my feeling is that
Not everything has apartments. It's a single-family dwelling with an apartment and a cottage and a cottage.
yeah, but those are accessory apartments proposals, correct?
Well, they're proposed as dwellings. They're the pre-existing
Right,
CO is
all right.
dwellings,
All
not
right,
apartments.
all right, I'm sorry, as dwellings, right. So, and by even by admission with Mr. Werner's lawyer, they have basically admitted that, that the building inspector was in error concerning at least one of the buildings, one of the dwellings. And if we if we don't deny the building inspector's CO, we are essentially giving all of those approvals. Now, we could maybe deny it with, or approve it with recommendations for amendments, but that's not what I hear is going to be happening. So, am I making myself clear? I mean, the applicant is asking us to reject the building inspector's CO. If we don't reject the building department's CO,
Including if we don't have 4 votes,
Right.
one way or the other.
right, then it stands, the CO stands.
Correct.
But by admission of the applicant's attorney, it's an incorrect, I mean, they recognize that it's not right, it shouldn't have been that, it should have been, seen as a playhouse. So in addition to the fact that I thought that some of the testimony in terms of the grandfathering of the dwellings was very, very slim. And so I'm going to vote for rejection or, denial of, or change of the building inspector's CO. It's a little confusing, but that's where I'm coming from.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm not going to support I support the CO as granted or given. I thought that the testimony demonstrated that there has been long-term use of the property as was described in the CO. Granted, one of the properties was not used as a living structure, but as a playhouse, perhaps. But I trusted the testimony, and I don't think it's our job to remove property rights from someone who has longstanding history on use of their property. I was particularly offended by some of the neighbors' comments about, someone said, we came out here to live in a single-family neighborhood and not have this. And like, well, this, all right, this is not a country club, and we're not the homeowners association, It's been there, it's established, and I heard the testimony, and I support the CO that was granted.
Anyone else?
I was not present when the initial hearing happened, but I did go back and review the tapes.
I couldn't hear you,
I
Bob.
did go back and review the tapes at Katie's request, and I support the building department's decision to grant the COs.
Okay.
And so do I.
I can't hear you either.
So do I.
Okay, and I'm just going to say a few words as well. So, the first thing I want to say is it's good that we don't always see things in the same way. That's why we're a 7-member board. That's why we all have different perspectives on sometimes what are difficult, complex applications. But in this particular application, at least from my perspective, there were a couple of things in my view that were problematic. One was that we had a survey that showed what was on the property. And if there's a survey, or if there's an aerial photograph, I'm going to take that over an affidavit. I am, because it's better evidence as to what actually was there. And I also, found that, what we got, and really, the neighbors, Mike Walsh's analysis of this, I thought in terms of the history of it, was more accurate, that the burden was on the property owner to, prove certain things, and I didn't think that they were proven. But in any case, that's me. I'm just one vote on the board. And so, with that all having been said, based on the evidence and testimony received at the public hearings as well as submitted into the record, what is your vote on whether the pre-existing CO was issued in error? So basically, a no vote is it was issued correctly, and a yes vote is it was issued in error. Or an I vote. An I vote. An I vote. Okay. All right. So,
do you vote?
well, first of all, is there a second on the motion? So I'm okay. All right. Mr. Daly.
No.
Ms. Kern.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly is recused. Mr. Macedonio.
No.
Mr. Tuthill.
No.
Ms. Burgess.
Yes.
I vote yes. So
We
I
have a
believe
tie.
we have a tie. That's what it is. Okay, so we got all this information on the record. A tie means that the CO stands.
Correct.
And in all likelihood, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen going forward, but I suspect we may be dealing with this application again. Just a hunch. I don't know. But in any case, all right. It's
okay.
It's all good.
Turn the money.
Bring it
Okay.
on.
All right. Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Couldn't hear you.
We are closed.